Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. This podcast was recorded all the way back in 2021. Today I have a very special guest for you. This is one of my closest and dearest friends. Jack Cronly is a man of many talents. He is an entrepreneur, a businessman, who is a very deep thinker, someone who has travelled a lot and seen so much of the world and the cultures that it has to offer. He's also an incredible DJ. He really understands how to harness the power of music to create a really deep sense of connection between people and inspire a natural state of ecstasy. Jack is also somebody who is extremely in touch with his playful inner child, someone who is very able to be spontaneous and allow the flow of life to happen around him. And so many incredible opportunities and experiences have come to him in his life because of that freedom and that trust that he puts out into the world around him. Jack is someone who has supported me through some of the hardest and the best times of my life. And so much of my growth has been credit to the incredible friendship that I share with him and the inspiring conversations that we've had. Jack has had an incredible amount of experience with travel, and a lot of our conversation is very centered around travel and the incredible impact that it can have on your growth as an individual through the many people, experiences, and cultures that you expose yourself to, which can help you to change your perspective, gain new insights, and grow as a person so deeply. I hope that you can gain some inspiration and insight from this conversation, just like I have from having this incredible friendship with this man. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. The resource of love is like an unlimited resource, and you can give that love to anybody.
Escaping that capitalistic notion that you always need to have more or to be more.
People often look at the finished product of things and kind of just assume, oh, I need to get to there.
Why can't these animals that we share the same lineage with share the same similar experience?
Acceptance of the self.
Yeah.
From the moment we're born to the moment we die, that's one of the main driving forces of existence.
Only constant in life is that things change. I knew that it was never going to be the same.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank
This
you.
has been a long-awaited episode, so I'm really glad that you've come to join and you're actually going to impart some of the wisdom onto this beautiful audience who
Of course.
I'm
Happy to be
hoping
here.
they're going to grow as much from this conversation as I have from our friendship. Just a few words about how I know Jack. We met at university and I felt like we just became really good friends really fast, and we weren't really, neither of us was really trying to manifest a strong friendship, but I felt the way that we saw the world, the way we talked about things and the way that we had a laugh just kind of,
So naturally.
yeah, we just gravitated towards becoming really good friends, like really fast. And yeah, you were there for me in moments when even people that I considered were my closest friends at the time weren't really there for me. And through the actions that you sort of showed me, the way you live your life and the way that you treat me and other people, you've really shown to me that you're somebody that is very inspirational. Like the way you carry yourself, the way you live your life, the way that you approach life in general with this very like easygoing, playful, open to whatever kind of mindset. It really inspires me, and the conversations we've had over the years have really helped me grow to be the person that I am now. So I'm really excited to share a bit of Jack with the rest of the world.
Thank you. The feelings are definitely mutual.
Nice. That's
Everything
good.
that you've said there is exactly how I feel about our friendship, and the advice that you've given me over the time, and the wisdom and the inspiration, the motivation that you've given me is something that I really hold in high regard, and very fortunate to class you as such a good friend.
Yeah, I feel the same. So just a bit of backstory for everyone else as well. You are an avid traveller. You have lived all over the shop and done so many amazing things, and really just one of those people that will just go out there and try something, even if you're not sure if it's going to work out. And I love that. You really take risks. You're also an entrepreneur, and you've started so many little businesses since I've known you. Music businesses, events. Even like selling little products here and there, like all sorts of stuff. And on top of that, you're like an incredible DJ that just makes everybody boogie the whole night away.
Thank you.
And there's so much more to you. So I guess it would be quite nice to get started just by talking a little bit about your origin story. Like how have you sort of ended up in the place you are now? Like where did you grow up? And just tell us a bit about your experiences that led you to lead such an exciting life where you've travelled so much.
For sure. So I have to definitely say at the beginning of this story that I am extremely fortunate. I have had a very, very comfortable and very enabling childhood through my parents, who have at the time, because my parents had me super late, so I think my mum was 40 plus when she had me.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she's born in 1954, so 1994 is 40 years. And so they had me quite late in their lives, where they were quite not particularly wealthy when they were younger. When my two younger brothers were born, they were, you know, kind of standard working class English people. But then by the time I was born, my dad had started to get some more promotions in his job. My mum was always working at the same time, so they had two incomes. And it was around when I was 10 years old that we got an opportunity to live in Singapore.
Crazy.
It was. I remember at the time when the news was broken, it was like, I was happy with all my friends, and I was like adventuring and doing all of like the stuff that kids actually should be doing. Whereas, you know, there was no phone, there was no laptop. We had dial-up internet with one computer, but I never used it. I was always out, you know, just enjoying myself being a kid, which is, I think, a rare kind of cohort of people who are able to actually do that. And it's changed a lot these days. But
we're in the golden age.
So the news was broken. I was very happy with my friends and everything, but I immediately just innately felt very positive about this. Maybe it was to do with the way that my dad presented it, and also because of the stage of my life that I was in, I wasn't completely rooted with friendships, relationships, life in England, so I was able to just pick up and go. But
life is just a big adventure when you're 10 years old, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And to give me an adventure in a new playground in Southeast Asia with amazing weather, the safest country, probably one of the safest in the world, the most efficient, and was just like a really eye-opening experience. And from going into pretty much standard kind of working class English household, moving to Singapore, where my dad's company paid for apartments, schools, cars,
Mad.
the whole expat package, as it's known.
Mad, that's so lucky.
So we moved into like an amazing, because everywhere in Singapore is flats pretty much. There are a few houses, but it's mainly high-rise buildings because of the small land mass. And yeah, moving into a place like that as a 10-year-old kid, we had a helper, so I was completely like spoiled, and I had so much opportunity, and you know, I'm very, very lucky for having those kinds of experiences. But being as well at such a malleable age, I was able to take in everything. I was kind of conscious of all of my surroundings and completely not afraid to try new things. Got into music. I learnt the drums just before I left England.
Nice.
And then I continued to play the drums in Singapore, did some productions, did a Disco Inferno production. Which was
nice, that's awesome.
It was in like full sequin outfit.
Oh, wow.
High platform shoes, and I was just there like...
Do you have any pictures of that?
There's a video somewhere, I don't know where it is.
I
There's
think
a
you
video
should send
of
that so we can
performance.
put it over the top
I
of
need to
this.
find it. If there's anyone watching from Singapore that was there for that performance, let me know, because I'm yet to find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had all these amazing experiences, opportunities, and because Singapore is the hub of Southeast Asia, getting to Thailand, to Malaysia, to Indonesia, everything is on your doorstep. It's so close, so we would be able to experience these little getaways and travel from such a young age was just really eye-opening for me. And being around as well, like those kinds of, because I was a bit of an outsider in Singapore in the way that a lot of people are. They're new to the country, they're coming from either England, Scotland, Australia. They're usually coming from, like me, normal kinds of backgrounds, and then being thrust into this new world. But then you've also got the lifers, the people that have been there their whole lives, and Singapore is their life. And that kind of difference in terms of philosophies and experiences and choices, behaviour, all of that is so distinct as you come in from an insider, from an outsider kind of perspective. So it was interesting meeting those kinds of people and adapting to kind of new ways of life and new cultures and new ways of learning and having fun.
It must have been very different culture-wise. It must have been a bit of a culture shock compared to... I know there's a lot of influence from Singapore from like the Western world in terms of how they've commercialized and stuff, but I'm sure there's a lot of culture that's very, very different. It must have been kind of fun and also kind of a shock to the system as 10-year-olds. So yeah,
for sure. And as well, the schools that I went to when I first arrived there, I went to an Australian international school, which was all like mainly Aussies. And that was like, I'd never lived in Australia. I've got Australian cousins and my dad's Australian, so I'm half Australian myself, but I'd never really fully experienced the school culture in that country. So being in Singapore and going to an Australian school was like, wow, this is totally different.
Double whammy, new culture.
And it was great. I really enjoyed it. I was happy there. I made lots of friends, but at the end of the day, like I just had a feeling within myself that I wanted to be a little bit more back into what I would classify as my type of people, which are English people, you know, culturally having grown up here. So switched over to the English school after about a year and a half. And yeah, that was as well very, very eye-opening, and it was amazing. The quality of education there was really high, and this was going back a long time. They were innovators in a number of like teaching methods, and the kind of teachers that I actually had were just, not all of them, but some of them were just still to this day kind of the teachers I look back on and be like, wow, these guys were just amazing.
Changed your life, right?
So yeah, Singapore 10 to 13. I left Singapore. We actually finished school around Christmas time, and I actually was lucky enough again to go and do another little travelling experience with my parents.
Nice.
So I had about I had a couple of months where I was travelling Thailand mainly, Malaysia. Northern Malaysia, Langkawi, amazing, like proper, you know, traveling. This is like it was a shortcut into what, if I live a life of success, and freedom and happiness and wealth, these are the kinds of experiences I can have when I'm older. So it was like
were you like
so
staying in hotels and stuff with families, or staying with families?
Yeah, it was like either hotels or like in some cases, and my mum she likes the quality things in life, so she picked out some of these resorts that were like what you see in, you know, travel videos and like what you see on Airbnb adverts,
and they're still super cheap. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah,
it looks like crazy luxury, but I mean, compared to what you pay for the equivalent in a
Other
different
countries,
place,
for sure.
yeah, like the Maldives or something,
for sure.
you get a similar level of beach time and everything, but the quality it's
Yeah.
equal, and the cost is just way down there compared to
For
other
sure.
places. Yeah.
So that was amazing, and then I went into Australian school after a few months of travelling. So
In Australia.
my 14th birthday, which is in July, I remember I was on the beach. That's when I like arrived in Australia. I was like, let me go to the beach, middle of winter.
Was it in like Melbourne or
Sydney.
Sydney? Oh,
Sydney.
nice.
So I went to Cronlito Beach on my birthday, which is where we've been a few times with my family, and it was. Yeah, it wasn't cold, it wasn't English cold, but it was not summer.
It was Australian cold.
There was no one on the beach.
So it was like an
nobody.
English summer, basically.
Got my wetsuit on, went for a swim.
Isn't it interesting that when you're here, you're a summer baby, but then when you go to Australia, you're a winter baby?
It is strange.
Yeah.
And now, when I get older, I'm definitely, I think the term is a sunbird. They flock to the sun. They fly away from the winter and they just follow the sun
That
for the
sounds like a
seasons
dream.
of the year. That's definitely the way I plan on living in the future.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, from Australia, did a couple of years at school over there. Didn't really feel properly settled and like I wanted to live the rest of my life in this country. It was very close. I was working in a restaurant. I was washing up, but learning from these amazing chefs. It was a Michelin-starred French restaurant, and I was learning so much. They had a pastry chef, and you know, all of the main like head chefs, plus all of the commis, and was just learning so much from the owner of the restaurant, who was the head chef, that I was this close to just, I'm going to be a chef.
I mean, you are an amazing cook.
Thank you.
Yeah, chef. You're not a cook. Cooks are people who read recipes. Chefs are people that actually like invent recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I've got to mention right at the beginning of this. Like on top of all of your other many skills, cooking is definitely up there. yeah, it's definitely something we always like to do together when we
For
hang
sure.
out for like a daytime session. We'll always cook
Mhm.
something. So
And you know the Caribbean curries I used to make for you? I made one for my parents last night,
oh,
and
nice.
I literally smashed it. It could
Yes.
not have been any better. It was like the ones that I were making you at the time were great. They were healthy. They were
Mhm.
like completely vegan, natural.
Mhm.
But the taste was, and the only difference is the water.
Mm.
I used to put stock cubes and water in it,
Mhm.
and now I just do 100% coconut milk.
Oh
And
wow.
it's so much
better.
creamier, so much richer.
Mhm.
You can have a smaller portion of it and feel fuller.
Mm.
And it's all healthy, good fats.
Do you know what I've like really fallen in love with recently with my coconut curries is the block of creamed coconut by Onadu.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
It's so calorific though. I mean, like it's fine for boys because you guys always want to eat more, but like for me, I'm living with my boyfriend and making food the same size as his. I'm eating a portion
Oh yeah.
way
It's
bigger than I should
filling.
eat, and it's
It's
like
filling.
yeah, in one of those blocks, I think I was like 13,000 calories in the
Wow.
entire block.
Wow.
I know, and I was using half of that for like 6 meals. So yeah,
Mhm.
calorific, but makes it so creamy.
Oh, so good.
So
The taste is just like irresistible.
Completely.
Um,
Anyway, you were in Australia, almost very, very close to deciding that you were going to become a professional chef.
mhm.
So, what made you decide not to go down that path and to continue down a different path?
So, two things. One, always having a innate entrepreneurial passion. Always having that within me from an early age. In Singapore at the English school, I would go home in the summertime and I would fill my suitcase on the way back with English sweets.
Nice.
Like just fill a suitcase with the Cadbury's, the like proper English stuff you can't get in Singapore. Go to Singapore and charge a highly inflated markup and just be literally like in the schoolyard just shotting sweets for all my friends. We're making like $100 easy a day.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and as well, like when we would have friends come visit us, I'd be like, oh, could you just bring like a few of these or like a box of those, or go to like Costco and get like a huge wholesale box of this. And so entrepreneurialism has been something that has always been there. It's not been a conscious choice like I'd want to do this. It's just like it's been something that I feel is within my, like when we get down to a soul level, that it's in there and that it just has its way of
It's part of your
expressing
dharma,
itself.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just something you're supposed to do in some form, whatever form it comes out.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that rings true through all of the things that I've seen you do in our
Mhm.
time being friends, that you just have a need to try creating stuff and be an entrepreneur. It's very much part of your makeup, I think.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Mm.
So that was there, and I knew that, I mean, I guess you can start a restaurant and you can be entrepreneurial in that way, but having experience, I did about at least 2.5 years of pretty much every Saturday, every Sunday, washing up like 8 to 12 hours a day, like fully like working
Killer.
hard. And I just kind of, I listened to the chefs and I spoke to them, and, in the conversations that I had with them, thinking about what I wanted for myself, working very long hours, unsociable hours for very little pay did not appeal to me. Not in the slightest.
It's very hard work having a restaurant.
Very hard work. There are
Yeah.
a lot easier ways to make money in this world than a
100%.
restaurant.
Yeah, it's such an over exploited business avenue as well.
Mhm.
We have like very similar experiences through very different circumstances, because
Mhm.
obviously my dad, having had restaurants my whole life, I've always seen like the hard work, and I do think that's really been a drive for me. It's why I work so hard in everything I do, because I've just grown up in that environment where that's just normal to like to try new things and to be entrepreneurial, but I have no interest in having like a proper restaurant. I'd like to do something with food one day,
For sure.
but not a restaurant, because I feel like the risk reward can be very, very volatile. Whereas if you have something like a little pop-up,
Yeah.
little place that you can take to festivals
Exactly.
and things, it's
Little
like a
camper van that you
guaranteed.
can convert into a little restaurant to sell at festivals and travel as well. So you hitting, even if you didn't sell much, like you're travelling and you're having a great time. As
And you give
opposed
people
to-
great quality food.
Yes,
for like a good markup.
spreading the good food, spreading
Yeah.
the good healthy drinks, and getting out there and sharing all of that love. It's a feeling that was just so positive.
Yeah, it is. And we will come back to your story, because there's a lot more to tell, but I think just on this topic of like, you know, using your knowledge of food and creating good drinks and like bringing health into something that tastes delicious is such a empowering thing that we can do for people from like an entrepreneurial perspective, because I think there's so many people out there who just want to create junk food really quick. It tastes good, but it's full of stuff that's slowly killing you. And if you can bring that really healthy, like there's no guilt food to something that tastes like it should be guilty food, it really it's like the double whammy for people, and you can start to make eating healthy cool, and that's definitely something that I think you have the capability of doing at some point.
Yeah, and I think we all should be doing that. Like, there is no downsides. There's no guilt for eating that positive, natural, you know, pure food in its purest form. There's no guilt. There's no downsides. It's amazing how that impacts your thinking and your moods, your emotions, your energy.
100%.
It all comes from that, and if you can make something taste good that is all of those things as well, absolutely share that with the world.
It's also coming from the place of like the person who's making it, you're making that from a place of wanting to give love and nourish people. I really, really firmly believe that, you know, that old wives' tale, like, oh, how do you make this taste so good? And my dad always says, oh, the secret ingredient's love. Grandma always says the secret ingredient's love. It's like, it's a common thing that people say when the food just tastes like there's this little something you can't put your finger on. And I really do think that giving that love and really wanting whoever consumes the food that you're making to really enjoy it and be nourished, and you're making it every moment thinking, I really am making this for this person, that food tastes better. It makes you feel better. It really raises your vibrational frequency. And that, I mean, I was talking to one of my friends who's a shaman, and he was saying that when he cooks food that his mum makes for him, because his mum is always really angry and stressed, and they have quite a negative relationship. He always gets stomach bugs after he eats her food.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really interesting. So he's gotten to the point now when he goes to her house, he'll bring his own food. He's like, yeah, Mum, let's just chill. It's all right. I don't want to make you stress going in the kitchen and having to cook vegan food for me and getting all stressed out. I want you to cook it because you want to cook it for me. And yeah, it's very interesting.
It is.
It's like when you go to fast food restaurants where people are really stressed. I feel obviously it's bad for you, the nutritional quality is awful, but I do think there's an aspect of it, like the people that are making it really oftentimes are stressed, under pressure, and they kind of hate what they're doing.
Underpaid.
They hate the people that they're serving because they're making them busy. So they're passing that negative energy onto you, and
of course.
it makes you feel sick.
In the same way that if you're going to eat an animal that's under stress when it dies, you are eating that stress. You are eating those emotions that animal felt in the moments before it was probably very inhumanely slaughtered.
Yeah, physically there's actually cortisol in the blood, which is, it's like both on like an energy level but also on like a physical level, a hormonal level. The animal is those secreted hormones are going to be in the meat when you consume it, or in the milk, whatever. But yeah, going off track.
But in the same way that it works from a positive, like you mentioned there, with putting love into food or love into drinks. Like I've recently been getting into sea moss, which is something that I've personally found to be one of the most
sea moss
effective mood and energy boosters that is coming from a completely natural form.
Okay, tell me about sea moss. I've never heard of this before.
It's you can get Irish sea moss, you can get sea moss which is grown in the Caribbean primarily, but it's an algae and it grows in the sea. And if you get I forget what the exact term is, but for the real sea moss you want it completely naturally growing. So you can farm sea moss, and there are two different ways of farming it. One of it's a little bit more sustainable and it's okay, but the other one is just completely not good. But the completely natural sea moss that grows in the ocean is it's very alkaline, and it is containing something like 92 nutrients in different elements.
Interesting.
It's very, very kind of, as you mentioned earlier, it nourishes, and putting like the love into the preparation of that sea moss is something that I've only experimented with recently, but giving thanks to it, praising it, loving it, like because you have to clean it by your hands, putting all of that positive emotion into it as you're preparing it. It soaks, and then you can soak it with a few limes to make it more alkaline, and then it's this gel. You blend it with some water, try and get the best water you can, and then you blend it and keep it. It's like alive. It's still alive.
That's crazy.
After you blended it.
That's crazy.
And I put some into this smoothie.
Nice.
Just put some other fruits in there and a few other like health things, flax seeds and nettle powder, a few other things in there, and
getting the omega-3s in as well. And algae also, I think, has high omega-3s as well.
Plus some chia seeds, very high in omega-3, 6 and 9. And yeah, it's honestly just one of the things that I've noticed recently. The first thing I have in the morning, it just puts me on a amazing energy. Like it just hit me. But you can overdo it. So once your body builds a
you can't have too much alkaline because your body needs to be slightly acidic. I think your stomach needs to be like just slightly into the acidic range from the neutral point. But a lot of people, they eat so much stuff that's highly acidic that their stomach is too acidic.
You need that.
They get the acid reflux.
You're always
and
going to
stuff.
have slightly more acidic, I think, because you're not going to eat 100% alkaline diet. It's kind of rare to have that kind of diet, but as much as possible.
It's really good. I'll try that out sometime, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can give you some to try.
Okay, that sounds good. Maybe I can bring some stuff next time that you can put in a smoothie that I'm not allergic to. Or we could go down the road and get some mangoes and some pineapple.
Oh yeah, we can do it today.
Yeah, we could do it today.
Absolutely.
After the podcast. Anyway, we've gone way off track, but really interesting off track. So this is why I like these conversations. But we're just going to take it back slightly. So you're in Australia and you've just decided that you're not going to continue working in the restaurant industry. So what's the next step for you in your path that gets you here?
So yeah, making that decision to not to use food as a hobby and something that I enjoy doing, but not necessarily something that I want to do as my main occupation. Also happened around the same sort of time. It was just as I was leaving Australia that I was finally able to do an elective subject, because all of my schooling until that point had been, maybe with a few exceptions, but it had mainly been completely given to you. You had no choice over the subjects you studied.
Yeah.
And then once I finally was released, I always wanted to study business. And when I was finally given the opportunity to choose a business subject, and I studied it, I didn't, I don't want to sound arrogant, I didn't put huge, I wasn't a studious, I've never been a studious person. I've never been somebody that really put in lots of work in or outside of school. I did enough to get by, but it was only really, it was probably only around that sort of time that I actually started to put any effort in. Like science was something I had zero knowledge in until I was about 15, almost 16.
You just coasted by.
I was in the bottom set of just everything, and everything was just a laugh. Science was just it was a social,
to chat to your mates.
It was a social situation. But then once I was given the materials and I actually did the work on myself, all of the knowledge I think I've had today is self-guided. Like you're given knowledge and you're given prompts and you can learn from people, but it's within yourself that learning happens. So when I was actually able to do that, it completely just, I put in a little bit of effort and went straight up.
Yeah, you enjoyed it more, right? I think when you direct your own learning and your progression into subjects that you find interesting, you do excel way more than just being spoon-fed. I think when you feel like you're working on something because you feel like you have to, rather than because you're motivated to do that naturally, the results are always temporary. I was very similar to you at school. I was a DOS for me until I was 15, 16, 14, 15, and my teachers had all predicted me Fs and Ds. And then I had a teacher called Mr. Morse in my music class, and he just walked around and he was talking indirectly to me and a few other people in the class who just dossed around all the time, and just said next year you're choosing your GCSEs and you guys have an opportunity now to turn things around, because everything you've done until this point is not really important, but after this point the rest of your life is going to be very different depending on if you choose to apply yourselves or if you decide to not take a hard look at yourself and decide am I going to just coast through life. And the penny kind of dropped for me in that moment, and I was like, probably should start working. And within a summer I went from Fs and Ds to A stars in every subject. So I was I started learning for myself rather than learning because I felt like I had to. And
which is totally different.
Yeah, it is.
We call it the light bulb going on in our family.
Nice.
Going to parents' evening, and my dad would kind of sit there and be like, we have this expression, you know, once you actually start putting in this effort and you do actually start learning, it's called the light bulb, like, you know, just clicking the light bulb.
The light bulb moment.
So yeah, everybody goes through that moment, I think, at various different times in their lives.
With different subjects as well. Some people light bulb with education and they don't light bulb with maturity or compassion or spirituality for much longer, and I feel like you have multiple light bulb moments throughout your life.
Always.
Depending on the triggers of the external experiences and also your, I don't know, it's like there's something within you that just feels ready for it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So, so having this ability to study something like business, which is something I've always been interested in, to actually study in a setting was amazing, and I took that, and within a few months, I didn't feel like I was putting in loads of work outside of class or anything, but just I was present in class, I was understanding it, I was enjoying it, I was like soaking up the knowledge, and I just was making these connections probably a lot easier than other people were. And it came to and I've never been an academic performer, but it came to our yearly results at the end of year 10, and I got the highest mark of anyone in our year.
Wow, well done.
In that subject. I like completely aced that test. Just put in a bit of work beforehand. I just knew the concepts. The questions obviously helps when the questions are easy, or when you can answer them. But
when you have the knowledge there naturally that because you're interested in it as well, it doesn't feel like a difficult subject because you genuinely find it interesting.
Exactly. So that was something that reaffirmed that I wanted to study this and start my own businesses and be entrepreneurial. And then also at the same time was thinking that the UK was a country where I feel like I could do that best as opposed to Australia.
Why the UK?
So mainly culturally, the people there, obviously I was more of an outsider, I was more of a black sheep in Australia than little Bo Peep.
Yeah, they probably didn't understand your dry, sarcastic wit a lot of the time.
I mean, Aussies are pretty sarcastic.
Are they?
Yeah, they're
That's
pretty
good.
sarcastic, and that might be where I get some of it from. But just small things, but also when you think about them, they are quite big things. I just didn't really feel like I completely fit in with that culture. I was able to experience it and got into like rugby league and like all of these like cricket, all of these sports I'd never been into really in the UK. And enjoyed that side of it, but just knew that it wasn't really where I just felt that I belonged and wanted to be. So also the university. So in Australia, the university system is really based on commuting into university for a few lectures, living at home, coming into university, like usually driving in, having a lecture, going home.
Oh, so they don't have like a campus experience like they do in the UK?
No, not even close to the UK campus
that's so
experience.
Interesting. Oh, I feel like that's really missing a huge point of what university is all about, is the growth outside of home. Where you
can live with friends, there's nothing to stop you from living on your own, but most people do just live at home because you don't have an income. You've got to take loans, you're in a situation where you're learning but you're not earning any money really, so in the UK it was just a lot more social, and the social side of university is something I really wanted to experience as well. And that's why as well, with combining that with business and studying business, that's where I felt like I was going to learn the most and be happiest in. So we came back to the UK. I did my sixth form, actually a little bit behind my peers, because because of the Australian school years, I actually started my year 12 1 year behind everyone else. And then I did my 2 years like in and out as quickly as possible, politics, business and economics, and then managed to get an A and 2 Bs in those subjects to get into university, to get into Loughborough.
Did you move back with your family just because you wanted to come back to the UK for uni, or were they going to come back anyway?
Mainly, I think my mum wanted to be back in England as well.
Nice.
My dad, bless him, I feel
he loves Australia.
I feel bad. He has been away from Australia his entire, working life. I think he went travelling just after university, which was in Europe with his mates, and then he met my mum, and there was a bit of backwards and forward. They actually met when he was in Australia. She came over. She's a nurse, and she came over as what they call a £10 pom. Which is like a £10. A pommy is an English person.
Okay.
And you could get a boat from England to Australia for £10 back in the day.
Wow.
There was some.
£10 must have been a lot of money back then.
Yeah, but also not that much.
Yeah.
Like, it was, but it also was very much like, I think, a lot cheaper than what we would think of a flight to Australia right now, which is like maybe the best part of £800,000. Like, it was not that much. So it was relatively cheap to get out there. And then, yeah, there was some backwards and forwards, and they were kind of in a relationship long distance, and then Mum put the gauntlet down and said, you're going to have to marry me or we're going to have to break up. So, and if you're going to marry me, you have to marry me in England, and you're going to have to live in England. So
A woman who knows what she wants, I respect that.
She put it out there, and she manifested it.
Nice.
And my dad has basically been in England ever since.
He came back for you as well. First his missus wants him to move to England, and he's like, finally I'm back in Australia. And then his son is like, Dad, really sorry, but can we go back to England?
But he was, I think he enjoyed his work. He did really well. He worked for the same company for most of his life. I think 25 years, 27 years at the same company. Rose up from entry level accountant to CFO, a big company, and they also did live in Canada for a little bit. They travelled together and lived in Canada, in Vancouver. But they settled on the UK. Mum started having babies. So my oldest brother is 37. So he's quite a bit older, about a 10-year age gap. Middle brother is a few years younger than him. So there's a big gap between myself and them two.
Interesting.
And
so was it just you living with them at the point that you moved back to the UK then? Had your brothers already moved out and were they living their own lives? Because you must have been about 17, 18, right?
So when I was 10, my brother went off to university in America. He played on the golf team, golf scholarship at a US university.
Cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. And then my brother, who didn't want to come, he was 15. He was in a relationship with his girlfriend at the time.
That would have been tough.
And he was thinking, no, I'm just going to live with them. I'm not going to Singapore. I'm not leaving my life here. I'm happy. There's no way you'll get me. And they made my parents... He made my parents' life very difficult in that transition.
Understandably, I would probably feel the same if I thought I was in love with someone. Didn't he end up getting back together with that girlfriend, or is that a different?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So they were together. I think from the age of about 13 or 14, and then Joe came out with us, and they were together for a few months, and then the distance, it didn't quite work.
Of course.
Joe. Left Singapore, went to university in England, fast forward a few years, did some travelling in Australia. As soon as he came back to the UK, they basically met up and got back together, and they've been together ever since.
Oh, and they've had babies recently, right?
Due any day.
Oh, so exciting.
She thinks it's actually going to be coming today.
Oh, really? Wow, that'd be lucky.
Yeah, it would be.
Nice, that's amazing. Honestly, a crazy story for them as well. And it's nice that, obviously, he was 15, so of course your parents weren't going to be like taking it seriously, because most parents wouldn't take seriously a romance when you're that age, but he really obviously knew that there was something between them that was really special, and it's cool that they came back and that love stood the test of time.
Yeah, it's really nice that they found each other again afterwards. Yeah. It was, he would say now, still probably one of the best decisions. He didn't feel like it at the time, but having 2 years in Singapore, he did his sixth form in Singapore, his year 12 and year 13. That experience for him, he still holds as one of his best in his life. Like, really good. Like, and because he was able to go out a little bit more, and I was still quite young, and I was doing more, kiddie things. Yeah. Just going out, like wakeboarding and stuff like that. But,
kiddie things. It's the kind of stuff I did every day when I was a kid. Growing up near the River Thames. I went wakeboarding with the rats every weekend.
Yeah, some pretty dodgy wakeboarding going on in the Thames these days.
So, sorry, we always get so sidetracked. It's the natural way conversation goes.
I'd be surprised if this goes any less than 4 hours.
God, I feel like we have to cap it at least at like 2.5. So you moved back to the UK and you went to Loughborough, and I guess during your time at university you probably didn't do as much travelling, or did you still find time to travel around and focus on the business side of things?
So that was a time in my life where I wasn't travelling too much. Before university I travelled a lot. Just the summer before university I went to Barcelona twice.
Oh, nice.
Amsterdam, and where else did I go? A few places, that have now since slipped my mind, but it was amazing to do some festivals and just have a really nice summer. was amazing. But then, you know, not like always having worked, having like £1,000 would be like I would work almost all year to save up this money to then go and travel and spend it on experiences and going out there. That was always what I spent my money on.
Same here.
From the age of about 14 up. Before then it was like clothes and superficial things, but then once I got a taste of being able to travel, it was always like, right, I'm saving because I want to go and have a little holiday.
I understand
experience
completely.
that.
When I was 16, I did my first scratch card on my 16th birthday, and on that first scratch card, I won £2,000.
Whoa.
I know!
Wow.
It's the only time I've ever won money though. Since then, that's it. I've just given up on scratch cards because I just know
Good, you're never
the chances of me winning again are so unlikely.
That's amazing.
But I used that £2,000 when I was like 17 to go to Italy for 2 months on my own, and that was my first like proper solo travelling experience. I originally went out there with a friend for like a couple of weeks, and then after that she went back home, and I just ended up travelling the rest. Yeah, it was amazing.
Spending that scratch card money.
Yeah, I spent it really quick as well. Like it was 2 months, but like I felt like I also had savings as well from working, because I've been working since I was like 14, 15. But after that trip, I was exactly the same as you. I just got the bug, and I was addicted to solo travelling, because the thing that I love about travelling, that I feel really, like particularly solo travelling, or travelling with someone that you feel is able to really go with the flow and be very open to experiences. But for me, it was always solo travelling. I really love that you are able to fully allow yourself to be free in the moment and to be open to the experiences. Like, you know, when you're at home with your friends, with your family, with your teachers, with your grandparents, whatever, I feel that people have an idea of who you are as a person and expectations of how you talk, how you behave, the things you're interested in.
And that influences what you do.
Yes.
Because you feel like you've got this image or perception to live up to that doesn't allow you to experiment and do new things.
Exactly. And the person that you are is it's like a imaginary concept. You know, you're constantly changing and growing with every idea and person you meet and book you read and film you watch. Like all of the things you know expose yourself to, it changes the way that you express yourself as a person and learn about qualities that you like, that you want to take on, and qualities that you think are not very attractive that you would like to try and let go of. And when I went solo travelling, I found that because I wasn't so wrapped into this idea that I used to have of myself of like, I don't know, being unconfident or being maybe a little bit awkward or being a bit of a loser or whatever, I could just be like, screw it, I'm just going to be the person I am in my head and see how people actually take to that, because I'm never going to see anyone here again. I'm just going to let myself be free. And I really loved that it helped me to grow my confidence to truly express myself. And I'd come back from travelling, and I felt every time I'd come back, I'd be a lot more ballsy and like out there, like fuck it, I'm just gonna go and
you feel
try this
great,
thing.
don't you?
You feel amazing.
It's like you're the opposite of a hangover.
Big
you come
time.
out and you've just got all this energy and this resilience and positivity, and it's infectious as well.
Big time, big time. And you open yourself to so many more experiences, because it's really scary when you're getting off a plane in a country that you've never been to before, and you don't know if everyone's going to speak the language, you don't know how easy it's going to be to navigate, and of course your grandparents will be, well, my grandparents anyway, tell you a million things that are dangerous about that country, no matter where you go. You could go to Singapore, the safest place in the world, and my gran will still give me a huge list of all the things that are wrong with it, so I can get really anxious before I go. And it's good to be aware, because you don't want to be blindly going into a country, but I remember getting off the plane in Italy.
So much of it isn't true, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get there and you're like, oh my god, will I make friends? Is it going to be safe? What if I lose my money? Blah, blah, blah. And it was amazing. Everyone was so nice. Okay, granted, my passport got stolen on the second week, but I sorted it out. It was fine. Apart from that, it was an amazing experience. I met beautiful people, ate amazing food, and I felt safe 99.99% of the time. And it really allows you to be more comfortable with change, I think.
Yeah, and responding to that. Like your awareness, but also your responsiveness to your environment, which is super, super important for conscious living.
Yeah, completely. You are very in the moment when you're travelling, aren't you? Like
there's no real like order, plan. There's nobody telling you what you have to do. You're making all your own decisions. You have all of the freedom, and that's what I think travel really boils down to. It's freedom, which is a human right, you know. And a lot of people fear freedom. A lot of people that I've met when they're traveling, okay, yes, they're there, but like you're here on your own.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I could never do that. Like, no.
Yeah, it's very regimented as well. A lot of people when they go travelling that I've met, both sides. I've met people who are super free and some people who are really regimented, and they'll plan, I'm going to be in this place for 2 days and this place for 2 days. I've got this bus
do this
tour.
activity in the daytime, I'm going to eat at this restaurant,
Yes.
and then we're going to have this for breakfast, and then
There's no room for
everything's
flexibility, is there? And I think, like you said, it is freedom. It's pure freedom. You can truly just be in the moment and not worry so much about what am I going to do tomorrow? Because you might meet someone today that will inspire you to go to try a trip somewhere that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And it's so much more fun if you can just say, Blue Grotto, never heard of that before, let's go! And just be spontaneous and throw yourself into these amazing experiences with amazing people that can teach you so much.
I have a perfect example of this.
Alright, go on, give us your example.
So I think I've told you about this before, but for the listeners, so I was in Bali in 2017.
Pause for 1 second. That light has suddenly got really dim. I'm just going to switch it.
Cool. 2017.
2017.
17.
Oh yes. Remember.
So 16 I was in Australia. So I managed to somehow wrangle myself a year off from university during university. So most people travel like before uni or they travel after. I managed to hit my gap year during university. So I had a dislocated shoulder and it was right before my exams, and it was about the third time that I'd been dislocated. So I was in the system to get an operation, which would have meant that on my right arm I wouldn't have been able to write in any exams. So they said, give you two options. You can either try and do your best from your situation, use a laptop, get a scribe, you know, however you need to do it, we'll try and, you know, help you in any way to get it done. Or you can take 12 months off and you can come back this time next year and just do your final semester and just complete everything then. And I could not have taken that option fast enough. Like I could not.
Yeah, it's the better option for sure. It would have been a nightmare trying to do all your exams with that situation.
It would have been. It would have been. It wouldn't have been comfortable. I don't think I would have done well. I wasn't prepared enough. But also, you want to tell me that I can take a year off and go travelling?
Yeah, and there's no consequences to
No consequences.
your student loan or anything.
No.
I would do the same.
I was couldn't have been happier with it. My parents, not so much, but that's another story. But, I used that time to work a little bit in Loughborough, and then I moved out to Australia in like October, and I did about 3 or 4 months of just graft, like 60 hours a week, being a waiter, doing like concerts, like just doing manual work, which is really high paid in Australia. Staying at my brother's place, just on his sofa, staying with him and his girlfriend and their housemate, and was able to just live cheaply and just save as much money as possible. And in a few months I'd saved up a lot of money, and then I was able to just go to Bali for a whole month and just enjoy that, spend it completely, no travel, no plans, all by myself.
So amazing.
And I ended up, there's so much to this story, but I'll try and keep it short.
No, it's okay. We're here for you, so go as long as you need to go.
So I arrived in Bali, Denpasar at the airport, and then just went straight to Seminyak because that was like, okay, I'll go to Seminyak first because it's near the airport. It's supposed to be really nice. There's a few recommendations of some cool places like Potato Head Beach Club.
Great place.
And just a few things I was like, okay. I think it was it you or somebody recommended me the hostel as well?
I think it might have been Sophie, you know, because she went to
Could have been.
Bali. She went to Bali the year before for like a couple of months to teach English.
So we met through you.
Yeah.
And she gave me the recommendation then of the hostel and the nightclub La Favela, which is just next door. And I was like, okay, right, I'll start there, and then I'm going to go here, then I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to Uluwatu, and I'm going to like travel and see the whole island in Lombok, and then I'm going to the Gili Islands, and I'm going to do this. And I ended up in 3 weeks, and I ended up spending over a week in Seminyak, because on the first night that I arrived there, I got chatting with this guy who's actually a local who lives in the area. He lives in like a villa. He was a videographer and creative. He was an entrepreneur. And we, through mutual interests, got talking into like events and DJing and doing some events at some beach clubs, and then he introduced me to some local people who wanted that kind of thing. So I was there, and just ended up that taking a little bit of time to get kind of in process. I was on holiday, but I went straight into work mode, like let's do an event. Like
yeah, but that's entrepreneur mode. It's not work, it's like adventure, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And it was super, super cool. Like I met a really, really nice local guy called Paddy, and he was just the most loving, kind, honest, genuine person. And through him we met a bar owner who has like a beautiful bar right on the beach in Seminyak, and he wanted to, well, we thought the beach owner wanted to do some events, and actually what was transpired is that he wanted to just catch up with his friend Paddy, and he was like, yeah, come down, we'll do some events, we'll talk about this, and the four of us just sat there, and the whole time we're there, the owner is just like topping us up with bing-tangs, and we're all just like sipping on the beach, like, and they had a big music speaker, so I went straight to it, and I was like, the one person I'm going to put on in this situation is Bob Marley, because it's so universally like popular, everybody knows Bob, the messaging of his words, the harmony of his voice, everything about that is positive vibration, so just had that playing on in the background. Was amazing, felt totally free, actually took a run down in the rain into the ocean.
Amazing.
And just like swam in all my clothes and was just felt totally free in those moments. So I did a few nights like this, and then we got to the point where I was like, okay, we've got our venue, we're going to hold the event, we're going to get everything organised, we're going to promote it, we had like groups and stuff, so we did that event, and that was kind of like, okay, I'm waiting around for this event, and the way that it worked out, the dates of it, was that we had that event, and then I was going, so there was a DJ called Luciano, who's a little bit more on the sort of techno side, but so I guess techno fans wouldn't really say he's techno. But he's cool, and I've seen him before previously, and he's a big international DJ. He was playing at a brand new club called Jungle, which just opened, and Michael was like friends with the owners of that, so we got in through guest list.
Amazing. And
so there was that event. I also then was like, at the time, one of my favourite DJs that I'd seen once before was a DJ called Honey, or Huni, a South Korean DJ. And he was playing Potato Head Beach Club, like literally on my last night in Seminyak. This was after I'd already planned the events and got the dates and done everything. But then after all of that came into like all of the plan was in place, then it was like, oh yeah, just one more night, Jack, because Honey's a beach
it's
club.
definitely worth the wait. And we're going to go see Honey next Sunday as well. It's so perfect.
Literally, that guy is just, the dates that he plays is perfectly in alignment with my travelling adventures, just completely by chance. Saw him just as I got back from, so I saw him in Bali. Saw him just as I got back from Bali in London, or in Nottingham at Stealth, where I was at university in Loughborough.
Nottingham, Stealth, memories.
And then, as I'm leaving the UK now, I was supposed to see him last year, but he pushed it back because I think he had some just personal, he didn't want to tour and play clubs, and he just wanted to take some time out. He's been doing it for a long time, and so that was announced only on the night or the day before that he wasn't going to be playing then, but they rescheduled it for the last weekend that I'm in the UK before I go off on my travels.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy.
He's like your spirit DJ.
There's something there.
You have to see where he's going to be next so you can plan your travels around it.
No, it's like almost
it just coincidentally happens, right?
If I'm true to my higher purpose, and if I'm true to myself in where
He'll just be there.
He will just pop up.
He will just be there.
I'll be
He's like your angel number equivalent.
Yeah, everywhere I go, I just see him. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
It will be. So you're in Seminyak, and Honey, I don't know how to pronounce it from the name.
Huni is the correct pronunciation.
Okay, Huni. I'll go for the correct one. Huni was playing in Seminyak, and after that, what happened in this spontaneous adventure?
So, it was so the Huni was on the very last night in Seminyak. So I had the event, and then after the event, I was coming back. We had motorbikes, and it was a torrential like monsoon, like serious rain, and the kind of just my own personal just wanting to just like get on with things and just get there. Wasn't really concerned about how dangerous it is to drive in such like slippery conditions. It was just like no, I just need to find the hostel. I didn't have any Google Maps or anything. It was all just going on memory. It was about a 20 or 30 minute drive from Seminyak. So it was all just by memory, and managed to get what I thought was 30 or 40% of the way home. And I was like, no, this is just ridiculous. I need to stop. I need to stop right now. It's getting ridiculous. So I saw a garage, so I just pulled into this garage because it had like a shelter with some tables out the front of like a supermarket off license. So I was like, oh great, I'll just pull in here, I'll get under there, I'll have a beer and a few ciggies, and I'll just wait for the rain to stop. And as I'm there, just sat on this table, two guys next to me are talking in Bahasa, and they are like just really animated. Like you can just tell, even though I had no idea what they were saying, that they were having really deep conversations.
That's cool.
And they were just so friendly as well. And just I can't remember how they would have initiated it, but they were just open and friendly and wanted to chat with me and learn from me. And
The
learn
Balinese
from
are
my
all like that.
experience.
They're all like that. So open, so welcoming. It's unbelievable.
Totally agree. They're such lovely people. And we were just chatting and having some conversations, and it transpired that one of the guys was the heir to the Bintang family.
Oh wow.
So the beers that we were drinking
That's crazy.
were all his like family's business. It was huge brand in Bali. You see it everywhere. But as well, he was just the most down to earth, genuine, positive, nice, humble person you could imagine. Not somebody you would think is, an heir to such a rich empire. He was lovely, and they were giving me recommendations. Where are you going? Just always asking questions, being interested in my experience and my travel, and kind of let out that I was going to go to the Gili Islands. I really wanted to go to the Gili Islands, and I was thinking, I'm gonna go tomorrow. Like, because I've been here way too long now. Like the event's out of the way. Like I just want to go. And it actually transpired that the other guy was a volcano photographer, and he spoke like pretty good English, and he was offering me to go on a trip with him the next morning at 5 a.m.
That's crazy.
To ride into like there's a little remote village, or the volcano we went to was Mount Agung, and you go through a village.
This wasn't the year that it erupted, was it?
I didn't hear anything about an eruption.
Okay, that's good. I think it erupted the year after you went, maybe.
Did it? Was that when you were there?
It erupted the year before I went. I went in 2018. You went in 2016?
2017.
2017.
In January.
Oh, so it must have erupted just after you left then. Interesting.
Very interesting.
No,
because, I was like 100% yes. Like,
Yeah.
I would love that. That would be amazing. And it was like a good solid couple of hour bike ride, which is I just love as well. And along the way we stopped overnight, and we just stopped in with various families. I think there was one, and a really beautiful way that the Aditya, who was the volcano photographer, a really beautiful way that he refers to people is brother, sister, mother, father.
Love that.
So old man walking through the village, father.
Oh,
just
so
greets
nice.
him as
So
his
nice.
father.
In Bahasa? Or in English?
So he was saying father to me, but maybe he was also saying it in Bahasa. I couldn't obviously translate. So, but he was like saying to me like, "Oh no, this is father."
So nice.
It's so nice,
So
so
sweet.
cute. And father was like this particular one was really just like hard-working, poor, but loving like personality.
Humble.
He just worked in the fields, in the rice fields, all day, every day. Would come home for his family, have a few hours sleep, eat some food, go and do the exact same thing, probably 7 days a week, just those real hard working characters. And this is where we stopped on the first night, and they absolutely would not have any arguments about me sleeping in his bed. He's like, "You are sleeping here, this is for you, this is your bed tonight." Like, and because they're very used to as well sleeping on the floor, but it was just a respect thing from them, and it's so important in their culture that they give, and they don't receive, and they don't kind of just take. They always want to give, which does make it difficult in terms of wanting to like repay that and give back to them.
Yeah, it's a very English thing to be like, oh no, please, I want you to be comfortable. It's very like a polite English thing, I think, to feel bad for somebody sacrificing their comfort for you. But I guess in that situation, you have to say thank you and gracefully accept it, right? It's like when you go to India,
100%.
they're going to offer you food all the time.
They're going to feel really
it's an
bad
insult if you don't take it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. We got up again super early with sunrise and watched the sunrise with some barley coffee.
Oh, I love barley coffee.
Barley coffee is the one.
So
they
good.
love their sugar in it as well,
They
so
do.
nice and sweet. So
It
we
really gets you going in the
It
morning.
does. And they cook for us as well. Simple, just rice and vegetables, occasionally fish, but mainly just real simple foods, all locally grown, all organic,
Amazing.
nothing bought from supermarkets or anything. Really, really like just amazing place, and conversations, even though they didn't speak a word of English, with Aditya able to translate, we're having some really nice conversations. And yeah, we stopped off before Mount Agung, very close to Mount Agung, in a family that lived at the foot of the volcano. And they had, they were a farm, they had some chickens running around, they had lots of cats. They were just living in peace and harmony with the animals around them. And you had the different generations, and quite young between the age gap, so there may have been 4 generations just sat with us in this circle. They bring out the rug and you sit down, and they prepare, they have like an oven that is in the ground, so it's like a dug out kind of oven that was hot coals, and then they cover it up. And they just put these sweet potatoes in, and they just come out so like soft and creamy, delicious, all different colours. They're very big on sweet potato in their culture.
I love that. I love sweet potatoes. They're so much better than white potatoes. Sorry to all the Irish people out there.
They're just a lot more nutritious, aren't they? And the taste is once you have them cooked like that, fresh, skin on, you just peel a little bit of the skin away and just...
Oh, so good.
It's
When
like
they're
a dessert.
soft, like it just melts in your mouth.
Melts in your mouth.
Sweet, starchy goodness. It's so good. It doesn't need any seasoning as well.
No.
And it tastes perfect. When it's like a proper sweet potato.
Yeah.
The ones that have been like genetically modified and like grown with pesticides, I can really taste the difference in like how nice they are. But
100%.
when you get like the organic ones that have like come out of the ground that day, cleaned and cooked just there and then, it's so much nicer, isn't it?
So nice.
Yeah.
We were visiting this volcano, this family, amazing, really having a great time. It was actually quite funny. I had a little nap. We all had a bit of a nap. And because I just was following, this was like the awareness that I'm practicing when I'm traveling was, I'm renting a motorbike, but like Aditya, he just leaves the keys in the bike. He just leaves the keys in the bike. If anyone needs to use it, they can just borrow it and they'll bring it back, and everything is trust based. And I'm like, how much would it cost if I lost this motorbike? And how much is this motorbike worth to a poor person like that? Like, why? I could completely understand the temptation to take it. But I was like, yeah, okay, I'll follow. I just left the keys in the bike, had the nap, woke up. Everyone else was still napping, although there was a grandma who was doing some like weaving with leaves. She was really
Wow,
beautiful,
that's cool.
like just like weaving these leaves together.
Wow.
And she was just like, everything just was peaceful. Woke up, like, okay, I'm just gonna like, bike's gone. Oh no. Oh no. And I like ran around and I was like, okay, alright. So I took Aditya's bike and I just like rode off into the village, like, and I could hear it. I could hear the bike somewhere. And I was like, where is this bike? I need to find it. Like, I can't. And I was all those thoughts going through my head and like, oh my god, where is this? And couldn't find it. I couldn't find it as I was there. After about 15-20 minutes, I was like, alright, I'm just gonna go home. And literally at the same time that I'm going home,
Someone drops off.
little 8-year-old kid just comes up driving it, like this little tiny little kid, and he just
Standing
pops
on it,
back.
right? Because they can't even sit on the seats and reach the handlebars.
He just pops it back, and he leaves the keys in. He just puts it on the stand, and everything's great.
Oh,
everything's
so
really
nice.
good. And
You
that
should have
was,
just trusted the system.
That's
Yeah.
was
But
why.
that was the Western London kind of mindset.
That was what
coming
society's
into
been
it.
conditioning me into think.
Mhm.
Whereas like they are completely the opposite, where they're just
Giving.
they are giving, they are trusting, and in their culture and in their religion, like
They're Hindu primarily in
Hindu
Bali,
in
right?
Bali,
And then the
even
rest of
though-
Indonesia is Muslim, right? Yeah.
So there are Muslims in Bali as well, but the predominant religion is Hinduism, and
It's all about letting go that want and attachment to things as well. And I do really feel that transpires in the whole way they carry themselves. Like when I went to Bali, I was just so amazed with how they would just want to help you. And something
Always.
again I found so interesting was like your natural inclination from like a Western perspective. For no fault of our own, it's just conditioning. But I do think we get very taught to have like, this is my thing, my possession. And if someone else touches it, they're crossing a line. And you kind of get taught to expect that if you leave your valuables out, someone will just take it because they want it to be theirs. And you have this kind of like this suspicion, this natural suspicion of goodwill that people are giving you, that there must be an ulterior motive. And that's something I found really fascinating, coming from traveling always just in Europe to then when I went to Bali, it was the first time I'd left Europe really on my own traveling. And there was, because I've had a couple things stolen in Europe, I had this natural like, okay, I've got to make sure I keep my bag locked, I keep my eye on it all the time, never leave anything like in a non-secure place, and nothing ever got stolen. Genuinely, nothing ever got stolen. Even when I would leave it out, and over the time you're there, you start to realise actually the people there, they genuinely couldn't give less of a crap about your special things that mean a lot to you, because a lot of them, they act in a way of service. There's always going to be people who steal in places like Seminyak and the more built up areas, but I feel like in little villages like that, they live a much more simple life. Like, what do they need? They don't need that thing. They're happy to take it and give it back, and
100%.
it's borrowing.
And within their religion, they are taught not to steal. They are taught in karma that if you do those things, then you will 100% feel the negative consequences, the repercussions afterwards. So for them, it's like, oh, okay, I could steal this, but it would do nothing for my life, and I would only then become like, I would only have like bad things happen to me afterwards.
Lowering our vibrational frequency for no reason.
For no reason whatsoever, and but there are of course cities. There's definitely cities that attract that crime and the criminals and the poverty that then. There's no morals. I feel like in big cities all over the world that those people gravitate there. And that's where you need to be careful with your belongings.
But I do think that the reason cities tend to have, and I felt this everywhere I've been, all over the world, all the major cities, there's crime, there's destitution, there's a feeling of being a bit less safe. Even growing up here in London,
100%.
After going to
100%.
uni in Loughborough, living in Newcastle, like coming back to London, I feel more unsafe here than I have in 90% of the places I've travelled. Not because London itself is like a bad place, but because the expenses of living in a city and the financial pressures, and also I feel like there's a certain element of like, you're so close to people that have so much when you don't have as much, and it can create this sense of jealousy and wanting for things that you don't
Selfishness.
have. 100%. And I think it brings out that side in people. Like, I was amazed when I went to Vietnam, to Saigon and also to Hanoi, how different they are to the rest of Vietnam, because the cities are so crowded, the people just seem stressed all the time because they have to work so much harder to get very little, and the costs for them to live there are awful. The air pollution is awful, and I think that pressure and that commercialization of life is something that really pushes people to feel like they don't have enough. Whereas when you're living in a city, in a village, in a quiet middle of nowhere, like when we were in Thailand and Bali and Vietnam, like when we're in the little villages in between, these people have quote unquote nothing according to Western standards of like nice cars and internet and all that stuff. But they don't feel like they need that stuff because they're not in a place where those things are being thrown in their faces with advertising and people driving around in fancy motorbikes saying like, oh, this is my nice bike, your crappy little moped's shit, this is my really fancy
Everyone's
bike.
got the same crappy moped, and that's fine because it works, and it's like, oh, it breaks, but okay, cool, but
they have
there's no ego
community.
in their material possessions because they just don't have the money for it.
100%.
But then also it feels like for them it's a conscious choice as well. It's like I don't think they would want it even if they had that.
They just don't have
would
an
be so much
interest.
more resourceful resourceful with that money, that they would do way better things than a lot of people.
Yeah, and there's also some people that go into the cities coming from that that village mentality, that more relaxed, laid back, mindful, present way of living. And they get thrown into a city, and their community, that strong community network of people that nourish them and give them excitement and entertainment all the time is gone. You know, they're eating probably a low quality diet, they're not sleeping as well, they're working harder, they feel probably more stress. And there's also a lot more general aggression in the energy of the space.
For sure.
I do feel like those kinds of things contribute to people kind of slowly creeping into also being like the environment that they're in, because we are very adaptable. And I do think one of the biggest things about, you know, some places like in India, like the smaller villages outside of India, and the bigger communities where people are really close, like Bhutan, for example, or like Auroville, I think is how you pronounce it. There's so many places like that where people really come together, and the community is what brings them value. Like they don't need stuff, right? They need each other. They need connection. If there's anything they need to survive, that's cool. They've got each other, and they don't feel the value that someone who's very lonely would feel in a nice fancy car or really flashy clothes, because the people around them love them no matter what they look like and what car they're driving.
100%.
So yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I love that too. It's the kind of life I aspire to live, like a much more relaxed state of being.
Much more fulfilled.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, you get back, you've got this moped that's been dropped off for you by this 8-year-old kid who's decided to go for a little joyride. And do you go on to see the volcano after that?
Yep. So we're right there, basically. So at that point, we go and we take the final trip to the very bottom of the volcano, going past a big barrier in the road. So it's winding roads going up, getting higher and higher and higher, and then gets to a point where it's like, okay, here's a gate, clearly in English and Bahasa, danger, do not enter, active volcano, not safe. And I'm like, oh, okay, we turn around at this point. This is like, no. And bearing in mind that like the roads are not massively wide, you know these roads, when they're winding as well,
terrifying.
and you've got that sheer drop over the edge, and you've got a gate going from the end to the end, like this, we've got 2 motorbikes. He immediately said, like, no, it's fine. We get off the motorbikes and we push them round this sheer drop edge, like kind of part of the thing. And we just do the motorbikes and then we walk through. I watch him do it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
You're following.
I trust
Go
you.
with the flow.
I trust you. This is fine. I'm happy to do that. And then we go through. I think he helps. I think he takes the motorbike from the other side. And then I walk across and we're fine. We continue. And there's not much longer until we get to like a car park, or what used to be a car park. It's just an empty bit of pavement and then steps that go up. So we leave the bikes, we walk up these steps, which is a lot of steps.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you were kind of at the summit of the volcano type of thing.
Is that the right term? I was going to use
sure.
it.
I'm not sure if it's the right term.
But anyway, it's the point of the volcano where you are on it.
Yeah, you're actually on it. I think that is the summit.
So you're not climbing up essentially, but you're on the ground, which is all molten lava.
Oh, you're beyond the summit. You're up there.
Yeah, we're on the volcano, but we're not climbing up it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there is an abandoned temple.
Abandoned stuff. That's
right at the
your
bottom,
street.
right at the bottom of the volcano, and is just, you can tell that nobody has been there for at least 20 years, or like nobody has used it for the last 20 years. And there, I think, have been eruptions, and you can see where the lava has flowed and turned into like hardened rock.
Crazy.
And we're just like walking around this like abandoned temple. It's amazing. We're having such a great time, taking a few photographs. He's obviously massively into photography, and he took some really cool shots of me. Some stuff that I still look at today is like quite inspirational, like things in those moments.
Were you as into photography then as you are now?
No. So, no. Like, I got my first camera when I was 13 in Singapore, but I only went through a quick phase. It was a quick hobby. I didn't really spend much more time on it, but I always had a bit of an interest in it. And then even then I wasn't really taking, it was him, Aditya, that really just showed me such a simple thing that made such a massive improvement in my photos, which was, instead of looking with your eyes and instead of trying to take a picture of what you think it should look like from your own perspective, the ideal way that a photographer will do that is they can see what their camera sees. They don't see through their normal eyes. They see what their camera sees, even though they're looking themselves. But an easy way, if you don't have that skill yet, is to only look through your camera. So it was just for compositional reasons, like just so simple, but you're looking through your camera, not trying to figure something out and then take the picture. So just having it up and looking through the camera and moving around, changing the angles, getting everything perfect so that it's like that, I know that looks great, so I can just take that photo.
That's cool.
So
Good tip.
Yeah, a great tip. And it wasn't until a few years later that I really got the bug and got my first DSLR and got into photography. But he definitely was one of the inspirations for that. And because there was one moment where I was a bit like, oh, what's going on here? Like, even though I'm fairly carefree and I don't really fear much. And
You're very much like, fuck it.
Yeah, go, it'll be fine. It'll always work out, and it always has.
It always does. You're very jammy.
And he's like there, and he's almost like meditating, kind of swaying, and he's just listening to the volcano. He's like, you don't need to read weather reports. You don't need to you don't need to rely on all this technology to understand the volcano. You just need to listen. You need to see. You need to, plan beforehand. The weather, the seasons changing, and he meets, and every local he speaks to in that environment, because they've lived alongside the volcano, they've learned from the volcano, not from books or technology or whatever. They've learned through their own practices, and everyone he meets,
they're in tune, right?
Yeah, he's in tune, and he learns from all of those people, so that he's got these skills, and he's just listening to this volcano.
Mad.
And he's like, he has a bit of a look on his face,
No.
like 1 minute, like, I'm like, oh no, oh no.
How quickly can you drive down a mountain?
At this point, if it erupts, we're dead. That's
Yeah.
it. There's no coming back. There's no getting back to the bikes in time. All the steps. I mean, even
Are you in the crater at this point?
no,
In the mouth of, or you?
No,
You're like
we're at
looking
the bottom.
over the ridge.
No, we're at the bottom of the volcano.
So if it's like this, right? You're like here, like
yeah, at the bottom,
Okay.
before all of the summit, and then obviously the ridge where you can
could
see.
have got away with it. You could have driven away really fast. No.
Absolutely not. I mean, it would have taken us 15 minutes even as a sprint to get back to the bikes.
Oh wow.
So if that is exploding, there's no way you're
that's
getting
true.
out. And even if we got to the bikes, that's also where the lava's going to go. So
You get on the
it
bike
goes down
and
into
it
the
melts.
villages, like it wipes out villages. And this is something that, even though in that moment it was quite scary for me, I can imagine what he was feeling, because he's lost friends to volcano eruptions. Because he studies volcanoes, he's always going around eruption times, trying to get the shots, understanding when it's about to explode so they can get the shot and get out of there quickly. It's very dangerous, and he's lost friends who have tried to go too much. They tried to be a little bit more like me, like, no, I'll be fine, I'll get here and I'll get that shot, and they never come back.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
So you can imagine what he was kind of
Must be
experiencing.
very apprehensive when the second he thinks there might be a moment, he's probably like, okay, we gotta get out.
100%.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, it's okay. It's fine. I'm like, wonderful.
Great, I get to live another day.
And it wasn't until afterwards, until I spoke to somebody in Bali so it was getting back from that night, and then it was Huni the next day. And at Huni, I was speaking to one of the guys. I was like, yeah, I was at Mount Agung yesterday. He's like, what? You were at Mount Agung yesterday? Like the day where it was predicted it was going to explode, or like where it was at most volatile? And I'm like, yeah, but I was with Aditya. He knew what he was doing.
I think you definitely just missed it, because I'm pretty sure before I went to Bali in 2018, it did erupt in 2017 or early 2018. And then when I got there, the whole of the northeast of the island was completely cut off. And then we had the earthquake happen when I was there. And it was such a shock to the system, because like coming from a country like England, you just really never have any inclination of what it's like to be in an experience where the environment is causing a threat to life. And it was such a shock. I was panicking constantly and just like worrying about like, okay, should I buy flights to Thailand? I actually did buy flights to Thailand because I was so worried, like I don't want to die in an earthquake. And all the Balinese were just like, yeah, it's cool, man, this is just like
it's normal life.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a normal part of life. And the thing that I find really interesting about what's happening with like the climate crisis now and seeing how things are like evolving, we're now starting to see these kinds of disasters become slightly more commonplace in countries that normally wouldn't be experiencing that kind of stuff. And I think it's really interesting that now that we're starting to realise how dangerous these things can be, or how scary or life-threatening they can be, people in the West are starting to take things seriously. But the people in countries like Bali, India, South America, loads of places, it's just a normal part of life, and they're the ones who are the most affected by the actions of the West in terms of these like natural disasters.
But they are the ones doing the least amount of damage.
Yeah.
They're the ones that take, you know, biodiversity and care for the planet more serious than anyone.
It's something I thought was so interesting that you were saying, like the people there living near the volcano, for example, like they're so in tune with the environment. They understand the rhythms, like they can feel the vibration of the place. When it could become dangerous, they probably know when to pack up and leave. And the fact that that's just a normal part of life for them, they're so in tune with nature, is a really huge part, probably why their impact is so much smaller than ours, because they really understand the balance in a bit more of an intuitive way. And people in the West, we just live in an overdrive of like take and not really fully taking in the environment around us and really being present in the vibrations of the space.
Conscious of your actions and the consequences of your actions. Which is something that travelling broadens your awareness and consciousness of, but also taking psychedelics, it really genuinely imparts that wisdom, and it's so common for people to have experiences and come out with it with this wisdom, and more care is taken in every action that you do, and you know, just little habits that you have or things that you don't even really think of, you just do, actually, like they make you pay attention to those things, and you just have a choice there, and it's such a natural way to choose. I want to do better for the world, I want to do better for other people, and I want to live in harmony with nature as opposed to destroying nature.
And you see firsthand the impacts of the choices that you make from a place of like luxury in the West, where you have kind of excess in all of the things that you consume. You actually see the impacts. I mean, like, you're about to go to South America. I'm sure you probably will see at some point the impacts of our meat farming industry and how it's destroying the beauty of nature over there. And it probably, you're already really conscious about this stuff, but for some people who maybe weren't aware of really what's going on over there, it makes it much more tangible and real. It's very easy to just hear about a concept of something that's happening across the world because of consumer decisions collectively mounting up and being like, oh well, you know, that's someone else's problem. But then when you actually see it, you feel the pain and you see the suffering that's a result of choices that you're taking a part of. I think it really makes you realise how valuable and how connected every single person is. Like an action that you make on this side of the world is directly going to impact the life of somebody 100%. That you may never see, you may never know, but it's really much more tangible, and I think that's something that helps us to build empathy in these situations.
100%. And looking at a natural disaster through the lens of a news outlet, or you know, you see raw footage, okay, it's still shocking,
It's
but
not
at
the
the
same
same
thing,
time it's not the same as being there.
Nope.
And having been in Southeast Asia during the tsunami in 2005, sometime around then.
2004, I think it was.
2004, was when we just got there, but visiting Thailand after the tsunami and seeing still all of the destruction in real life, even though I wasn't there at the time when it happened, to go just afterwards was still very eye-opening in terms of that.
Probably makes you really want to dedicate a lot more of your time to helping people in those situations as well. Not from like a place of like, you know, I'm privileged and I'm sticking my nose in it, because I'm coming from a place of having the ability to do that, but I think it's more from a place of responsibility. I think, like they say, with great power comes great responsibility, and from a place where you are, you know, you're born in a situation where financially and education wise, like economically, you have this situation where you are capable of helping. You have the education that you can implement your business strategies and your entrepreneurial mindset to helping people. I do think that there's a responsibility that we each have in the West to the people who, for whatever reason, they're just born into a life where they just don't have the access to the things that we have access to. And I think you have to respect that power that we have to really help those people, and also lessen the damage that we are creating in their world. And not just 100%. People, the animals as well, the fish, everything that we're sharing this planet with.
100%. Something in that moment where I was with one of those families near the volcano, and they gave me their address and they gave me all of their details and they're like, oh, please come back one day, we'd love to see you again, all of this.
So lovely.
But in that moment, like that just really generated a strong desire for me to want to set up a system where a charity essentially with that community that we can then go back to and use the resources of the West to help in terms of, you know, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but in terms of in some way enabling them with knowledge and access to information and skills, because they're all wanting to learn skills so they can, you know, earn a little bit more money, benefit from tourism in some way. So enabling them to have a system where they're able to do that would be really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's a project I will be working on.
Amazing. Well, I'll be joining you on the project. However I can help, I will be there. Especially because we're both probably going to be in Asia at the same time when you're setting up these things. Oh, even if it's not in Asia, but you know, any
Anywhere.
similar place. Yeah. So you're at this point where you've gone to this volcano, you've had this amazing experience and really gone off book from your plan, and again, like, demonstrated how traveling is an opportunity to be truly free and to allow the universe to kind of put things in your way that you can choose to take or leave. And I think that's a huge thing about traveling and just life in general, but something that traveling, for me anyway, in my life has really opened my eyes to is the opportunities that are presented to you. You have a choice whether you're going to continue down the plan in your imagination of a life that you are imagining is going to play out, or taking the opportunities that are right in front of you in that moment and allowing yourself to kind of be taken by the flow of life in a way. So you've had this amazing experience and very off book, very unexpected experience. And what happened next after that? Did you continue on to Bali, to Gili T and the other islands, or?
Yeah, so that was always my next destination, but I went from the volcano experience, then coming back the next day I had my music event, so that was the day
of course.
that we actually did our own event, which was fun. It wasn't particularly busy, we didn't get a whole lot of people there. Our marketing strategy was a little bit flawed. But it was still fun. I played for about 8 hours of like all my like collection, like I've still got the playlist now, like it's all like amazing music I've collected over a long period of time, and it was just fun in a really cool environment. We had beanbags, inside outside kind of space, like high quality restaurant, and it was a lot of fun. Met some cool people. And then the next day it was Hooney's event at Potato Head Beach Club, which was like, wow, like already I'm on cloud 9, but going into that environment, and it's like you can either pay $100 if you turn up at this time, or you can come for free before this time. So I'm like, I'm coming for free.
No question.
I'm coming in at like, as soon as you open, I'm there. And I was just chilling, just by the pool, really just enjoying life. And then he started and he played a mammoth 6-hour set or something. Like. And then I ended up meeting the organisers of that event who booked him and brought him to the island, and we all went to an after party together at another venue afterwards, and I DJ'd there, and met some other like cool local people, more expats, but some local Indonesian people as well, and that was just great. And I was like, I'm so happy with everything I've done so far. I've done everything I need to do in this area. I'm going to go to Gili T. So the next morning I went Gili T and met a lot of the people I'd seen in Seminyak in that hostel. They were also at Gili T, and it was at a big party hostel, you know, and it was like fun. We had a night out, but I was like, this place is not really for me. I didn't want that kind of experience. I wanted a much more natural, I guess more authentic experience, as opposed to like, you know, loads of travellers getting drunk and playing beer pong and
doing what you would have done at home anyway. Yeah, it's like you might as well have stayed at uni in that case.
Yeah, exactly. So went to Gili Air. I actually got myself a shroom shake just before I left, and then I got my shroom shake and took that slightly, maybe a little bit.
Was it a strong one?
In the wrong order. The thing is I was chatting with the guys in the beach hut the night before, and there's one salesy, pushy guy who was just trying to get like, no, buy it now, have it tonight, no, not tomorrow, you'll never come back, like, have it now, really like forcing it on me. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not in the right frame of mind to do it right now, and also the weather was a little bit crazy, and it's at night time, and I felt like I'm not here to, I'm trying to respect this like medicine for what it is, instead of having to have like a shroomy fun experience, you know, meet people and go, whoa, this is weird. Like, no, I wanted more of an introspectual, spiritual trip. So I was like, this is not the island for me, but it was where I could get it. So I got it, and then I got the boat. I booked my boat to Chevallier. Had
Did
the
you keep it in
shroom
a
shakers.
bottle, or did you?
It was
have
in
it?
like a just. It looked like a just weird coloured milkshake, like a greyish coloured milkshake.
Yeah.
And they used Coke and like all kinds of flavours, so it tasted fine. There was no issues with the taste. But I was like, I'll drink my shake, and then I'll get on the boat, and then I'll arrive in Chevallier, and it'll be great, and I'll find.
You have your big bag and everything.
Big bag,
oh my
no
God.
accommodation. Like I've got to find somewhere to stay.
Oh God.
And then I was like, yeah, then it'll all just
Love to
work
go
out.
with the flow. Love to go with the flow action.
And took the and I asked for a medium. I asked for a small or a medium. I didn't ask for the biggest one. I didn't give them that much money. I actually paid for the shroom shake the night before, because I was like, you know what, I'm definitely coming tomorrow. I will pay for it now, and I'll just pick it up tomorrow. When I'm in a much better like frame of mind and everything. So I did that, and the guy, this pushy sales guy, wasn't there, but it was another guy, and I think he was also there at the time on the last night, and he was aware that the guy was being pushy, and he was a much nicer person.
That's good.
And he, I'm pretty sure, gave me a huge shake
Oh,
because
really?
it was so strong. It was like the perfect level. It was the perfect level. I put on my headphones, and I got on the boat, and I was wearing these sunglasses, and the kind of edge of the boat was like a UV kind of filter to block out some of the sun, and I had these sunglasses. I'm not sure if they're UV or not, but anyway, the what I was seeing through my glasses, through the tinted window out onto the beautiful ocean with the sun coming down, was really nice. And I just popped my headphones on, and I was listening to some music, having a great time,
Nice.
feeling good. And then out of nowhere, like when I'm starting to feel good and this is great, and then just these multicolored mushrooms just start dancing off the water. You've got like a neon yellow, neon pink, neon green,
Wow.
and it's like they're just like almost dancing. They're just like
That's
floating,
amazing.
just like, I'm like, this is great. This is awesome. I'm feeling awesome. The music's going, and I was on the boat ride. I'm not sure how long the boat ride was, but it wasn't that long. It didn't feel like, it felt like a minute to me. It was just like I was really present in that moment, and so present in what I was seeing and experiencing that I forgot to pay attention to the fact that everybody had got off the boat already, and I was sat there on my own, literally boat's just about to leave again to go back to the other island, and guys was like, hey, and I was like, oh, alright, I've got to get out. So I get my bag on, put my headphones on, I'm on my way, feeling great, and I just arrived, and you arrive in Chevallier, and you've got a port, and immediately right in front of you you've got a dive resort, which is super high quality. And I was doing some hostels, and in the one night in Chevallier, so I did one night in a hostel and then one night in a really nice fancy place that I just walked into and negotiated a good deal
Nice.
in this really nice place. Ended up being like $20 a night.
Oh, so good.
And so I was like, okay, I got a bit of a taste for the luxurious travel. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to have a look at the room. So I've got my shades on, and I'm speaking to the woman behind the desk. And I was
How
like,
did you manage to have a conversation with
I'm
someone?
not quite sure.
I'm so weird when I'm on shrooms. Like, I
Yeah.
can't have a normal conversation.
I managed to do it, and she was like, would you like to look at the room? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we went and looked at the room, and just instantly, and as well, as amazing as everything looks on mushrooms, like everything about it was like amazing. All the furniture was made from really nice wood. It was all the same kind of wood for the bed, for the chest of drawers, for the wardrobe, for everything around. And it just looked perfect. It was just a small double bedroom with a shower, but the shower was amazing. It didn't have a roof.
Wow.
So it was walls, but then you just look up at the sky, the sun. It was so beautiful. So I immediately was like, yeah, I'll take it. So I had to give her like some details. I just gave her some money for a deposit. Like, I'm staying here now. This is me. I'm happy. And they left me to it. And then for the rest of my trip in that room was super spiritual. And at the moment, at the start, it wasn't. I was just feeling great, and I was like,
Seeing some wacky stuff, the usual.
yeah. I think there's a really nice concept in Islam where it's called wudu, where you cleanse yourself before communicating with Allah or with a higher purpose. So you wash your feet, you wash your hands, your neck, you brush your teeth, you know, you clean yourself so that you are clean once you talk to when you talk to God. And I got in the shower and I had a shower, and as soon as I'd like cleansed myself, a series of events just kicked off. Where the first was a call to prayer that was playing from outside, and I was already playing. I played one album, which is a really nice album by Nightmares on Wax. It's called Smoker's Delight, and it's got like a really just trippy feel to it.
You played this for me a few times, yeah, it's really good.
There's not many words, it's just really like nice
instrumental,
like,
percussion,
bass guitar, percussion, like, and every song, and it flows, it will be chill and then it will go.
It's cool because you'll listen to the whole album and you won't notice the songs changing because it's so seamless. You feel like it's just one big song.
Literally,
it's really
feels like
cool.
one continuous song, which is the great way to listen to an album when you can go from start to finish without wanting to skip and stuff. You know, it's a great album. And this was just playing on loop, on loop, on loop, and then the call to prayer started playing, and that fused. And in my mind, what I was experiencing, what I was listening to, was the most beautiful sounds. Like the combination, they were in harmony. There was because the way that the Quran is written and the way that it's recited is really beautiful. It rhymes and it is a kind of it's just a really pleasing thing to listen to.
It's very melodic, isn't it? The
very
language
melodic.
As well. Yeah.
And the way that it's written, they believe that it could only have been written by Allah because it is so perfect in the way that when you recite it, it is in a perfect that no human could replicate. So,
Beautiful.
And this kind of combination, just like, it couldn't put into words how amazing it sounded, and the feeling it created within me as well was so positive. So that happened, and then I looked at the shower, which was all made of this black stone, and I had no idea, but just looking at it, like, it just seemed like maybe it was influenced from my volcano trip just previously, but it seemed like this was volcanic stone.
Amazing.
And looking at it, it was just a blank piece of tile, but looking at it and looking into the details of it,
you see all the shapes and stuff,
yeah,
can't you?
the little movements, and what I was understanding there was that even though it is just a piece of rock, this rock has a soul. Like, it is connected, it is one of our own, and it is a concept in Rastafarian that they call liberty, which is that all energy is one, and it is with everyone, and it's all part of the same system. So whether a tree, whether it's a rock, whether it's an animal, whether it's a human, it's all connected.
Yeah, I mean, we're all made from the same stardust. Every single thing in this entire universe is made from the same base fundamental particles. So even though the configuration might appear different, like a tree, a man, a dog, a cat, a table, it's all still the same elemental particles colliding with each other to create
100%.
it, like consciousness. In a sense, it's creating that very interaction itself. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. I feel the same.
And like, you don't see it.
No,
when
you feel it though.
You feel it. And when you're not on psychedelics, your brain is filtering out this information because there's too much for it to process.
So you would not be able to function and survive. Your avatar that you play on a day-to-day basis just wouldn't be able to function in the world. And that's something I find interesting. We'll carry on with your amazing story. But whenever I take psychedelics or DMT or whatever, like, I do feel that even if I'm on my own, I feel like I'm surrounded by presence of this, like, it's me and I'm it, but I'm not alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did a mushroom trip on my own, and I walked through like this beautiful forest once, and I was pretty up there. Like, I took a lot stronger of a dose than I thought I did. One of the Aztec, and I was walking through this forest, and I just felt like in any moments that my ego started trying to grasp to, like, you know, panicking about stuff, worrying about things, whatever, I would just be like, no, you're not alone. Like, you just are. And it was so comforting because I just felt like all the trees and the ground and everything around me was like giving me this love and this presence. And I do feel that no matter what room you're in, you can tap into that energy.
100%.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in the world.
Whatever you're doing,
If you're in nature, if you're inside, if you're in this country or that country, it's all the same.
Yeah.
In this planet and in this galaxy, it is all part of that one.
100%. Sorry, so carry on. So
course.
in the shower, looking at this alive, moving rock.
And I can see almost the soul of the rock by looking at it. And I'm just so like into that, and then I take a little bit more of a step back and I see, okay, you've got this swirling shapes and what I can see is like a soul, and then the shower head is one of those, you see them quite often in Asia, but they're pretty universal. It's just a simple pull up, pull down, and then to the right or to the left for the temperature, but it's got a very elongated trunk, looks like a trunk. So we've got a silver trunk and you've got the shapes twirling around the outside, and I can just see now a presence of Ganesha.
Mad. Crazy, innit?
And just felt overwhelmingly like I was in the presence of Ganesha in that moment, which is not something that you really feel in everyday life. Because even if you are spiritual, even if you know that, okay, even if you believe that you are in the presence of God, you know, at all times, you don't see it with your eyes, you don't feel it in that sense unless you are super deep into prayer. And so that was the first moment I'd ever felt like that. And I just felt an overwhelming sense of, what can I learn from this? What can I do to better myself, better the environment? What can I take from this that's going to be positive? And one of the small things that he decided to show me was the little ladybird that just crawled in front of me as I came to that awareness, had that experience, had that awareness, and just a small little ladybird just crawled in front of me, and I was just looking at it with so much awe and love, and just saw like this is a being, and one was connected with myself, and all I was doing was watching it, and then as I'm watching it, it just flipped over.
Wow, really?
Flipped over onto its back, and playing dead or actually just died in that moment. I don't know.
Was the shower running at this point?
No.
Wow.
No water.
Wow.
And I immediately was like, oh my God, like, did I just kill this? I know I didn't step on it or trample on it, or there was nothing that I did that I could see that resulted in that happening. But I was just like, wanting to like will it back to life almost. Like almost just with my energy and my feeling, just like didn't do anything, didn't touch it, but was just really putting all this positive energy towards this little being. But they didn't decide to come back, and they never really kind of, you know, showed any signs of life. And I just in that moment was just really reminded of, one, how amazing it is to be in that presence, but two, instantly how nature and, you know, a more spiritual, higher being can decide to take at any moment. And how you have to respect it.
Life is so short. Life is so short, and I think a huge part of like experiencing the death of another being in front of you, it's like the fact that you were there to share and be in that experience with. I know it seems like such a tiny thing. Some people are like, this is ridiculous, it's a ladybird, but it's a living being. It's just as alive as you and I are, and the fact that like it was in the presence of another being that was consciously like willing it that love, I think is really important, and I think it's something we really lack in our culture, particularly in the West. Well, it is all stemming from the West. Is this huge fear of death and this kind of like untouchable conversation around it, where people won't even kind of acknowledge its existence, and will spend their whole lives pretending that they're never going to die, and then when someone is dying, they really just don't know how to talk about it, they don't know how to think about it, they don't have to even say the word. Like you talk about someone's pets that they love to bits and they're getting old, and you say, what are you going to do when they pass away? You're going to get another dog? And they'd be like, oh, don't even talk about it. And I feel like we need to, for me anyway, if I was in that experience, I would really feel that there's a huge message there about acknowledging and accepting that death is a part of life,
Mhm.
and that it's the thing that makes life so precious, isn't it?
It is, and you feel as if there is only one life.
Mm-hmm.
You feel, because you're experiencing your present moment and your
Mhm.
past, this life that we've had, you feel like that's it, because that's all you can consciously remember. But for me as well, and another reason that made me think this, is that there are more than one life, and as a soul, this soul has lived hundreds, thousands, an infinite maybe number of lives previously. And seeing similarities between people, you know, like a friend of mine, Jobling, he's like amazing guy, really creative, and we've felt a little bit connected spiritually, because the first time we ever met was when we took truffles in Amsterdam.
Nice. That was the first time you met?
First time we'd ever
Was that
met.
when you went with uni?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And we both decided, we didn't see each other at all when we were in Amsterdam. We were in our different groups. We'd both come to the decision that it was a great idea to get some truffles and take them on the coach on the way back. So there was three or four of us. Gaff was there, and potentially Brad and some other people, and we were all just in this on this coach that we convinced ourselves was a train. Like, this is not a coach, this feels like a train, this is a train. And yeah, that was a moment where I guess we were connected. And then once I fast forward into Bali, and a few years later, we hadn't seen each other in a few years, but I looked in the chrome pipe of the tap, and it was his soul, or like his body of what I know for him to be now, with dreads and with a rasta hat. And I was like, I was so sure, I was like, this is him, and this is like him just looking back at me, just like everything's good, like smiling, but like just proving to me that there are like many lives that people live, and people can live the same life in different cultures, different religions,
different times. You could be in this time now, and you could be born back in like the 18th century. I think the interesting thing about, I've had this debate with my friends recently as well, because you know, fundamentally, in what I feel strongly seems to be the truth that seems to intersect a lot of these spiritual teachings, is that God is in all, like the universe, whatever word you want to use, Allah, God, the base consciousness. There's so many words that people use to describe the same thing, and so many stories that people tell to articulate the message of the same teachings. But fundamentally, I do truly feel that each and every one of us is the same collective consciousness experiencing itself through a multitude of different lifetimes and interacting with itself, so it can learn about love, connection, suffering, overcoming that, letting go. We do have souls, and those souls are going through this path of living a million different lifetimes and learning, and each time you learn, your karmic debt changes, and you get presented with more opportunities and more lessons that allow you to get closer to remembering that you are the same as everything else, everyone else.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a really beautiful concept in Rastafarian religion where I and I. So I and I, as in I myself, well, I as God, or mind blank.
I and I.
Jah.
Jah.
So that is their God and their higher purchase. So that is I for the Jah, and I is in the self. But it is centered around this universal, central kind of shared consciousness between I and I. I and I are the same. You are the same as Jah or as God. And that's something that they really devote, and the best kind of, or not the best, that's the wrong word, but the Rastafarians that have achieved this kind of understanding and what they call overstanding, because it's not good to have understanding seems to have a negative connotation. When you overstand something, you have more power over that. You understand it, and you understand it from a bigger picture, from a wider perspective, not just this
myopic,
means that.
tiny,
And they, and Bob Marley talks about these things in his songs, like One Love, Positive Vibration, and a lot of the messaging, and Bushman, shout out to Bushman.
Love Bushman.
An amazing spiritual teacher in his music. it's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
And something that they have known about for a long time.
I mean, all of the spiritual religions, I think, even if you look at like, you know, obviously this is one of those things that it's a topic that some people can feel is quite sensitive talking about religion, because I think we have a tendency to become very tribal. And it's something that I find really interesting about how both of us actually look at our spiritual development is we take a lot of learning from multiple different religions and
100%.
spiritual teachings, and we don't identify with any of them because I think we both seem to believe that fundamentally the message behind it, the true deep teaching is the same in all of them. It's just a different way of practicing, you know.
And each teaches in different ways.
Yes, yeah, well, it's different practice, isn't it?
Practices or highlights a certain element or a certain behaviour or characteristic or what you can do, but aiming around the same central pillars.
And it doesn't matter really, in my opinion, how you choose to reach enlightenment, whether it's in or heaven or whatever, moksha, whatever word you use to describe that reconnection with the source of all reality, that true consciousness. That is you. You're always that thing. Everyone is always that thing. But we're all playing a bit of a game where we've forgotten what we are, and we need to go through this for whatever reason. There's a purpose for us to all experience the multitude of lifetimes and learn each and every time. So the collective dharma of our entire universe of experience, not just our planet, but the universe of experiences beyond even our own known galaxy. It can learn something from that and become more loving, more compassionate, more connected, and to disintegrate the ties of the ego and the separateness. And I feel we all need to go through that path. It doesn't matter how you get there. You could be Buddhist, you could be atheist, you could be Muslim, you could be Hindu. Like, it doesn't matter what religion you follow. I think there are many ways to reach the same destination. Like in Siddhartha, when they go off in many different paths, and I think it's important for each and every person to
find
their own path, and not to feel like you have to follow really strictly any teaching unless that feels right for you. But if it doesn't, I think the fundamental important thing is you're striving to let go of your selfish desire by your ego to be attached to the outcomes, to be gaining things only for yourself from a place of insecurity or mistrust or whatever, and instead to become more compassionate, more open, to realize that you are this huge ocean of experience, and the more that you can give to that experience from other people, animals, everything around you, the more that you can immerse yourself in like what it really is to be alive. It's really fascinating. So I'd like to continue with your story. So you're in this trip and you see the ladybird has died, and from that, like, what happens next?
So there was, this is kind of the height of the trip where I'm feeling the strongest, and I'm feeling that still within this presence of Ganesha. This is where I'm probably, this is the peak of that trip. And to be honest, there was a moment afterwards where, the songs, the album is still playing, the songs are still playing.
Is the call to prayer still playing as well at this point?
No, that only lasted a few minutes, less than 5 minutes. But the album is still continuing, and that still sounds amazing. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I think I probably just gravitated, put some clothes on. I remember actually one moment of when I was walking in my room, and just that, just as you're on a substance like mushrooms, which are the oldest organism in the entire world.
It's crazy. Yeah.
They are the creators of life. They take and they give nutrients, they fertilize, and they share it amongst trees.
They allowed us to survive when there was no sunlight because of the volcanoes erupting.
They are the teachers. They are the oldest and wisest organisms in this world. And when you ingest them and you put that into your body, you pick up on, I believe, it's the first experience I ever had, I felt this way, and it was confirmed through a friend. It's like, yeah, for sure. I said, I feel really wise. Like, he's like, yeah, for sure. Like, they are like a very old organism, and you do inherit some of that wisdom, and it will teach you, and it will teach you something that you need to know that's specific to you as well, which is just insane. The way that is a tailored approach.
If the intention is there, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
and if
intention
you're ready for
always
it.
has to be there. If your intention is not good, if your intention is somewhere else or it's egocentric, you will then be shown an experience that will teach you why you need to be better with your intention.
Yeah.
Like, there
Hence
is
the
no
bad trips.
Yeah, well, there's no
There's
bad
no bad
trip.
trip. Yeah, it's all
They're
learning.
all learning experiences for sure, and that's another part of Islam which is really nice. You know, I speak to many Muslims. I'm not a Muslim myself, but the people that I do speak with, I ask them, you know, like, I really agree with a lot of the things that you do. I feel like there is so much that I enjoy learning about this culture and so many good things that I'm practicing, but I drink alcohol, I, you know, smoke cigarettes, I do these things that are against the teachings of the Quran, and I'm not a devout Muslim, and a lot of the Quran says in their teachings, you know, those that are non-believers and believers, there's no middle ground. You can't, like me, in the eyes of the Quran, I'm not a Muslim and I would be treated, you know, the question is would you be treated the same as a non-believer, as a completely awful, like, terrible person who has really bad intentions and lies, cheats, steals, and does all of this continually? Would you be viewed the same? No, you wouldn't.
Of course not. There's always degrees of variation. Like, these books, these teachings are guidance, and it's up to the individual person who follows them to be able to also base their intuition on the present moment, the person they're speaking to, and the feeling and the experience they have with that person as well. They highlight
a lot of times, you know, they say, don't worry, nobody's perfect. Just think about your heart, think about your intention. Are your intentions pure? And if they are,
cool,
that's fine.
Exactly.
Like, that's going to be viewed out in a positive way.
Of course. I think a lot of the time, again, like, the language over time changes with a lot of the way that people practice spirituality and, like, certain religions. And I think sometimes people can get so caught up in just taking the word for word, but, like, okay, you're either a believer or you're not a believer, you're out or you're in. And again, it's creating that separateness, and really, truly what God, Allah, like, it's all about love, acceptance, forgiveness, you know, oneness with each other. So even from my perspective, like, people who are the worst quote unquote people in the world who do horrible things, even those people are capable of being as amazing as the Buddha. Every single person.
Have that within them. It's within all of us. Love is within all of us.
We can allow the ego to trick us into becoming this ugly version of whatever character we're playing, or we can allow ourselves to seek a higher power or to become more fulfilled through helping others and becoming a better person. And it's so circumstantial. It's so down to, like, the influences that you've had in your life. I really truly believe that some of the most horrible people in the world who are causing so many of the problems that we have today, environmentally, economically, and so on, I truly believe that those people are only that way because they were born into a life where they have not been given love. They've been psychologically abused or tormented, or they've had traumas that can't be explained. They've been in a system where they've been taught from a very young age by conditioning to be lying and cheating and to be prioritizing money over everything else. And it's very hard, I believe, to really ever truly blame anyone. And I think when you start coming into this territory of, like, blame and you against me and otherness, that's when we start to create the problems in our society where we can't actually fix what's going on. Because, you know, it's even like, I was talking to one of my friends the other day about how, you know, as a vegan, I'm very aware of the impacts of, like, factory farming or the impacts of, you know, digging oil out of the ground and using crude oil and stuff and fracking. And one of my friends was considering potentially doing a protest where she would go and disrupt the function of, like, an actual oil mine, and get arrested for that. And even though I can understand the importance of disruptive protest, I think there's an element of, like, these people that are causing some of the biggest problems, if you turn them into the enemy, if you demonize them, you make them feel like they will never be allowed to be on your side just because they were born into a life where that happened to be the path they followed for unknown circumstances. You're never allowing those people to be what they're supposed to be, which is a part of the solution. You know, the farmers have to live their life, they have to make money, they have to put food on the table. they have to be able to adjust to a changing world. And if you're demonizing them, they're never going to feel ready to do that because they feel like they're outcasted before they have an opportunity. Same as non-believers in a spiritual context. People who are very atheist and have maybe some very nihilistic and negative views of the world and humanity. If you tell that person, you're a horrible person, you're a nihilist, screw you, that person will never open themselves to your teachings because the way you're treating them is showing them that they are not welcome to those teachings. So I really do feel that a non-dualistic approach to how we see each other is the most loving approach that we can take, and realizing that actually we are all one, we're all going through this journey, and it takes a long time before you can get past the tricks and the traps of the ego and society. So yeah, very fascinating.
100%.
Yeah.
And just to add a little comment onto the end of that one, I think the amount of people who are causing those kinds of issues that have been a victim of that environment and they've not been shown love, and those things, they also lack a higher purpose, like having a higher order purpose of how you live your life and why you live your life. If you have that guides everything. That guides your decisions, that guides your behaviours, your thinking, and it's all interrelated. But having that higher purpose, if you believe that, everything else follows and is consistent with that.
Also, I think if you believe, if you're coming from a materialist perspective of like, you're born, you live, you die, and then you're just dust and nothing happens, and it doesn't even matter because I'm just going to die in X number of years anyway, so I might as well take as much as I can and make the most of that because I'm never going to get any real repercussions for any of this, or not even that, but just I'm not a part of anything bigger. Life is just a big accident and it's all pointless and nothing matters. I think that actually pushes you more towards the tendency of living selfishly because you feel kind of scared and I think deeply unsatisfied by the fact that nothing matters and nothing is important, which in a sense is true. In a sense, nothing really does matter because in 4 million years the sun will explode and this whole planet will be engulfed by an uncontrollable supernova, which will then probably give rise to new life somewhere else. But the point is that you are a part of something bigger that you might not be able to see from your very myopic perspective. But when you think that everything's pointless, I think it puts you in the tendency of like, I'm going to take, I'm going to cheat, I'm going to steal
100%.
because there's no consequence and it doesn't matter anyway. So I actually think people that are living from a place of materialism, nihilism, very mechanical thinking about the way that the world works, about something that we don't understand. I think it does actually tend to create that lack of high purpose, which then makes your high purpose then becomes you and your gratification and the ego, which is the crux of what's allowed our society to become so destructive now. I guarantee you, all the people that are running our economy and our politics were people that had a higher spiritual purpose and were connected to, they don't need to have God or Allah or anything like that, they could just have a higher spiritual purpose
and
feeling.
love for others,
the love, yes.
not for themselves,
yes,
not for their own power and their own gain, but to help others. If everybody agreed on that, we would be the most efficient
we would.
version of
We'd live in a
this
beautiful
planet
world.
that we could.
We wouldn't have the society we have now though, that's the thing.
Absolutely
Because
not.
our society is built off of making people feel stressed and insecure and unhealthy so that they need to buy your products and invest in things that you're creating. Continuously. And if everyone is content with not having everything that's ever been produced in the world and just being content with being present in this moment, they're not going to be consuming, like the whole world around us would be totally different. If every single politician in Parliament meditated every day for half an hour and practiced these kinds of things and thought about these kinds of things, it would just be so different.
Had a few shroom shakes. For sure.
I wonder how many of them have done shroom shakes in their time. Probably a couple on parties and
A
stuff.
couple, but probably not enough.
Not enough. I feel like this conversation is just, as always when we talk, go on forever because it's so interesting. Like there's just so much to talk about, and I feel there's so much more that I want to talk to you about already. So I want to start moving towards some other questions that I feel you have a lot of experience in stuff that I think really can add a lot of value to the viewers, and your perspectives are really valuable. So for starters, I want to know what for you is a recipe that you apply in your life to help you to cultivate a fulfilling and meaningful experience day to day and in the life that you're leading right now, because I do feel that you really are living a beautiful and fulfilling life, and It's very inspirational.
Thank you. I
So-
try.
You do well. You kind of try and you also don't try in a nice
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
And sometimes the law of least effort is a rule that I live by. But yeah, I think, as we just mentioned there, having that higher purpose, having that in place, knowing why you are existing, and for me that was not something I discovered until 2019.
Oh really?
So I was quite late when I actually really discovered what that was, and it wasn't something that I'd really given much time to. I thought, oh, I want to be a chef. Oh, I want to be in business. Oh, I want to go to uni. I want to do this. I want to sell software. These were things that, like, yeah, this is where I should be going. But it was not a internally introspective decision that I came to. It was more of a superficial, oh, I'd like to earn some money, I'd like to do sales because it's quite social and it's not like other jobs. It seems naturally to me to want to gravitate towards that. But it was in a work trip to the US. So I was working for a software company in Dublin, out of university. It was my first, I'd done a placement year, but then it was my first actual outside of university job. And I believe I was doing some training, and then I took some time to go and see my brother in LA. And on the flight to go and see my brother, I was sat next to a woman who was very like friendly, chatty. She was in probably her late 30s, had children, and we were just having a conversation on the plane, and I gave her some music to listen to, and she didn't know it, but she really liked it. She was really like just a positive person, and I always enjoy sharing music. And then it, got onto the question, so what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, I'm working for a software company. I sell software, and didn't have a whole lot else to say other than that. And I said, what do you do? And she said, oh, I'm a teacher. I go into like really troubled schools with really like at-risk kind of youths, and I teach them valuable lessons for life that are outside of the curriculum.
That's really cool.
And I have really like specific things that I've worked on that I teach them, and it was just so beautiful listening to what she did with her life and what she chose to give to others as her job, as her occupation. And I totally felt the divide between somebody there that gives their lives for others and somebody there who lives their life for themselves. And just speaking to her, like, she didn't put any of that on me at all. She was very positive about what I was doing, but I really just felt deep down
you were lacking that drive, that purpose. And
it was just it was a very clear, like, I'm living for myself, I'm living selfishly, and you are living for others. And that is who I want to be. That is a role model that I aspire to want to be. And there's no reason why I can't. So it's just making that choice to switch from being selfishly self-absorbed in yourself as opposed to then helping others. And it was just after that I had that conversation. I watched I'm not sure if it's on there anymore, but it was a Netflix documentary on Bob Marley, and there was some really
it's
good.
still there.
Is it?
Yeah,
I'd love to watch that again. It was so nice. Really, really like positive. Learned a lot about him, his songs, the politics of what he was dealing with, and just his constant devotion to spreading positive messaging and teachings of Rastafarian culture and how it can be applied into like everyday life. And there was one moment where in one of his performances he lives his life in a Rastafarian way, and when he goes out and performs on stage, he is channeling that spiritual energy.
it's amazing.
And you can see it if you've ever seen some of his live performances.
I have,
There was
yeah.
one concert he did which was during a time in Jamaica that was really troubled, and they had a big divide between two politicians that were like, fighting, and there was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of unrest, civil unrest, military action, especially in like Trench Town and the poorer communities where Bob is from. And he was told not to perform. He was like, absolutely not. You cannot perform at this time. I think there were threats against his life because, you know, he was just becoming too popular and powerful, and there were people that wanted to kill him, and he just decided, no, like, this is what I'm doing. I think it's actually the most important time for me to spread this message and bring peace.
Raise the vibrations.
Right, literally raise the vibrations at this time. This is when Jamaica needs it most. And he performed, and he went into, is a clip in the documentary, and he's singing, and then he just takes the step back, and he's in a trance. He's in a trance, and I don't know what he was thinking about, but I
you
know
can feel it, right?
that I can feel that I is connected there. And as he sings, he takes a word, and there's a silence, right? There's a silence for maybe 30 seconds, and then he says, whoa, he like just says something, and at the same time that he says that, there is a huge lightning strike.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like the exact time.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I remember watching that and being like, this is insane. And at the end of the documentary, or there's maybe a quote from Bob that's like, and it's is part of my higher purpose, which is, all I want to do is live in a world that I can feel and I can say confidently that the world was a better place because I was alive. So that is something that I truly hold at my highest kind of level to guide me, and that guidance is going to be there. Once you need to rely on it, once you're in difficult decisions, you will be guided by the universe or by a higher power. If you live in that pure intentional way, it will guide you. If you live in the other way, that will also guide you.
Yeah, and you choose the path that you're going to go down. Every single time you make a decision, you're stepping closer into one path or into another. And you can always change path. That's the beautiful thing.
Always.
You can always change path. No matter how far you are down one, you can always go down the path of higher purpose.
Always.
Even if you're knee deep in the trenches of ego, you can always step back into the light. And I definitely agree with you that when you live with intention, presently, moment to moment, I've even experienced this so many times in my life since I've started to live through that intention as well. The opportunities that come your way for you to find what your purpose is become much stronger, and the pull becomes really strong. You can really feel that you're being guided towards a certain direction. And there's also opportunities for you to say, no, I'm going to go take this other opportunity that's come up that's guiding me back towards ego. And it's very interesting when you're open and aware of that messaging that you can pick up on it.
And when it is the right path for you, you will attract the results that you could never even think of. You will get wins in ways that you've never imagined. If that is a right path for you, the universe will have a way of putting those things in your path, and it will just come to you. It will flow to you. There's a lot of really good speakers and authors. Napoleon Hill, in his book Outwitting the Devil, was his last work after writing Think and Grow Rich, which is now viewed as one of the sort of most prominent and popular self-help books. He went through a process internally himself after writing those books, becoming an author, and there was a lot of moments in his life that created this book for him, and it's something that he's reported on, and it is so accurate. The time that he wrote this book was in the sort of Great Depression era, 20s, maybe late 20s.
Hard times.
And a lot of the things that you would think of if you wrote it in the 20s would be so outdated. It'd be, oh, well, this is not quite right for today. And the book was not released because he died before he had a chance to publish it. And his wife read it and thought, no, this is too controversial. It goes against religion. In ways it goes against religion, but it's taught in a way of spirituality. And there's a lot of anti-governments and schools, and points out a lot of the flaws in mainstream society, even back then, which is still all accurate and true today.
Yeah.
So it was just deemed to be too controversial, in his wife's opinion. And his wife lived a long time. But when she died, there was a trust that took over, and they had the manuscript, and they decided eventually, after 2000, I think it came out in the early 2000s, maybe even as late as 2010. They decided to publish it, and it was at that time that, well, I read it quite a bit after a friend of mine recommended it to me in 2016. But the concept of, which he talks about quite a lot, the concept of hypnotic rhythm, he calls it, which is the hypnotic attraction. Once you're in a rhythm with something, once you're pursuing a purpose in the direction that is right for you and right for others, and once you have that guiding you, that rhythm just, it creates momentum, and it puts things in your path that you can take advantage of, that helps you achieve that mission. I think that's what you need to be successful in anything. So you need that guiding you need that assistance from the universe, which you achieve through creating a true intention and having a definite purpose in life, and going out and achieving that.
Yeah, and definitely rings true, I think, in the way that you live your life as well, and the way that you're approaching how you're changing things in your life. So having a higher purpose, are there any other aspects of your formula for a fulfilling life that you'd like to share? So
I mean, at short, I would think that exercise is a huge part. It needs to be there. I myself have gone through low times where I felt really almost depressed. I felt like I couldn't get out of bed and didn't want to do anything because I wasn't exercising, because I wasn't eating right, because I was not living in a way that was true to my purpose. I was living in a way contrary of what I knew that I wanted a life for myself. At university, doing my dissertation, doing all of that, like feeling overwhelmed with all of this. I don't really want to continue, but I'm having to continue just so I can finish this degree. For expectations of others, as well as, you know, not wanting to just...
And societal expectations as well.
So, and probably from a fear of failure as well, which was a strong driving force. But yeah, having those kind of routines, even if it's not every day, because I don't religiously stick to these. I know when I'm feeling good that I'm doing these things, and when I'm not feeling so good is that they're missing. Meditation as well, which you can notice instantly once you become more stressed and easily aggravated, and when you respond to things in everyday life, that things like traffic, things like things you can't control that are just there in your
beeping
life.
at you on the motorway and stuff,
like we were outside earlier, and the one thing that still does, it tingles me, and I'm aware of it, is the cars that just drive so unnecessarily fast in like quiet residential narrow streets where you've got cars either side, and they're just purely egotistically just racing through. That still does generate this kind of feeling within me.
That's so interesting.
Because I'm aware of it and I process it, it takes me a second for me to let that go.
The meditation is to bring that awareness to it, right? Like being okay with the fact that that response is there in any situation, and just being like, oh, I'm responding this way right now. That's okay. I don't have to do anything about it.
And not letting it consume you.
Yeah, completely. Allowing yourself to be present in the moment and just be equanimous with whatever is going on around you is a huge part of meditation. And honestly, every podcast, when I ask people this question, I always come back to meditation as well. Like, I think a lot of people seem to also. It's such an important part of living a fulfilling life, is to take some time to check in, be present, and to practice that muscle of being 100%. Present.
100%. And to mention a few other topics in short detail, and then we can maybe pick a couple. Probably won't have time to do them all, but so having love is absolutely essential. Love for yourself, love for others, whether that's human beings, whether that's animals, whether that's plants, trees, giving love and appreciation and thanks to the things in your life that you are all connected with and can appreciate and learn or be nourished from. Or so having that as a core component of an everyday life is super important. I believe that society has conditioned us to gravitate towards negative or emotions or fears, and it takes some unlearning to come away from those kind of inclinations to want to respond in that way.
Completely.
The way that the media portrays the news in a way that responds because you respond to the fear, you respond to the negativity, the sad things, and it takes conscious work to overcome those things. There's a really nice, which I'm going to have to quote, there's a really nice element, there's a section in Napoleon Hill's book where he talks about the other self, which is the discovery will come as a result of two major turning points in your life, which constituted emergencies that force you to change your behaviours. So change the way that you think, your habits, the difficulties like that you have at the moment that you've never really experienced before. And people call this like being at rock bottom, or when you get to that point and you're like, I need drastic change. And it's very simple in the way that he describes it. It's really beautiful. Two entities occupy your body. One of those entities is motivated by and responds to the impulse of fear. The other is motivated and responds to the impulse of faith. And you have to make a conscious decision. Which one are you going to listen to? Which one are you going to let guide you? Are you going to be responded by fear or faith?
It's like that two wolves that live within you parable as well. It's very similar. Like you have two wolves and you need to decide which one to feed. There's one which is driven by fear, impulse, ego, and there's the other one which is more based on community, that pack mentality, caring for others and caring for something greater that you can't necessarily see the instant results for. And whichever one you feed is the one that's going to grow, and it's the one that's going to be able to guide you the strongest. But you have to choose in every moment which one you're going to continue to feed. And every time you choose to feed the side of yourself that is coming from that place of higher energy, that muscle or part of you is strengthening and becoming stronger. That guiding force within you is becoming stronger. And every time you feed the ego, it's becoming stronger. So it becomes a habit that's ingrained in your behavior that you just automatically think, oh, selfish decision, or oh, selfless decision, until it becomes a point that like it's just an automatic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're not conscious of it anymore.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
And it works in both ways, so you have that choice. You haven't read it?
I haven't read it, no.
Yeah.
I will read it.
Have
you got it on your Kindle by any chance?
I don't, but I can.
You can? Oh,
yes.
This is exciting.
I think it's easily accessible, and I'm not sure why, but it was available. I remember at the time when I was buying it, it was available for like £2.
Wow, that's crazy.
It was so cheap.
They're probably just trying to get it out there as well.
Potentially the trust was not looking to profit from this, and they were able to offer it, and at a very cheap price, like the cost of printing, essentially, and a bit of shipping or whatever. But yeah, really, really beautiful book.
Sounds really good. I would definitely read it. I'm also currently reading a book called I, Reality and Subjectivity. Really fascinating book. I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but really fascinating book, and it's very much talking about this sort of thing, the subjective I and the reality of what I really is, and like the present moment experience.
Who was the author?
I can't remember, but I'll put it in the show notes, and I will let you know as well. I've got it on my Kindle, so I can share it with you. Yes, it's very exciting. But yeah, carry on. You had a couple of more aspects.
A few more points.
Yeah.
So me personally, and it's not the same for everyone, but I feel like there is an element, because yes, it's subjective, but at the same time, it's a feeling. It's not something that you can say right, wrong.
No.
It's not science. It's not.
No, this is just your formula for your life. Yeah.
Music.
Yeah, I completely feel music as well.
It has to be there, and it, for me personally, the discovery of new music, experiencing old music that you appreciate and know and like, and I don't know how many playlists, but in the thousands.
So many playlists.
In the thousands. And
I sponge of your playlists all the time.
Oh, I'm happy to share it. And I'll put a link in this video where people can access all my playlists.
Yeah, I definitely recommend you do that because they are amazing. Any mood, he's got you covered. You don't have to think about anything.
All of the names are slightly within my head. I know what kind of things they are. They may not make 100% sense, but they're there, and you'll get the feeling once you listen to it. The name should make sense to you. But for me, discovering and sharing that music with people, it creates a feeling that I don't really feel in other ways. It creates something so strong within me from like my base, like if you believe in chakras, from your root chakra all the way up your spine, through your body, through your chest, your heart, your third eye, your throat, like all the way to the top of my head. Like it just, this energy, this pure like feeling just goes, I just feel it when I listen to really good music. Like good music has that ability to create that feeling. When it's done with real musicians, talented masters of their craft, not in just one master of like a guy who can play some bass. It's like the
combination
best
of them working together, right?
And the best audio engineer to put it all and make it sound clean and harmonious and not auto-tuned, not edited, not enhanced in any way. Just giving that instrument the room in the track to breathe and to flourish, and it ebbs and flows as you go through the track. So in different parts, the vocals will be the main component, and the rest will be in the background. They'll be at the bottom, the lower tones, the bass. And then you'll go through moments where the hi-hats will come in, or the strings, and it's uplifting. So
takes you through a journey, right?
It does. It does, and it's a living thing.
I feel that, honestly. When I was driving here today, I was stuck in standstill traffic pretty much the entire way. It said it was going to be an hour and 20 drive. It was like 2 hours, and the whole way I was just honestly vibing to my music the whole way through. I just, every single song that came on. And this playlist I picked is called Sky High Vibes. It's very like very spiritual. I always put it on when I take like magic mushrooms and stuff. And I just felt like this energy of just like buzzing, positivity, the whole drive there. And I didn't give a shit if I was in standstill traffic or if I was going 70 miles per hour. I was enjoying every second of it. And it's this real feeling of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a feeling of just like awe. Isn't it? This pure energy just coming through your body, like connecting with the vibrations and the sounds. I completely get that, and I agree.
I was trying to think of a way to describe it, and I think the best way that I can use, the best word, you can't put it into words, but the best word I can think of is ecstasy. Ecstasy,
yeah, it is. It's pure ecstasy.
Pure, strong, positive. And not an artificially created ecstasy.
No, it's what ecstasy is named after.
Exactly, exactly. Because it's like you can kind of achieve something similar to that, but nowhere near as good. Like some of the moments, and I'll probably end on these two stories, but some of the best I've ever felt in my entire life. I've been completely sober, and I have experienced music in a way, either discovering through at Kerry Chandler's, one of Kerry Chandler's gigs, or one of Hooney's gigs. Had some amazing dance floor
moments,
experiences without the need for any alcohol or drugs or anything at all, and just focus on that music. And they've shared music that I've not discovered before, or maybe I know one or two, but like it's the discovery, because there's so much music out there, and it just creates that feeling within you that you just, it's so pure, and it's so, there's no drawback to it, there's no come down from it, there's no hangover, there's no like negativity that comes from feeling that way in that moment with that kind of music. And as well, sharing music from a DJ perspective, once you're in an environment with a crowd and you're playing music to them,
the energy that they're giving you, right?
The energy you're getting back from them, that you can see how people are enjoying it. And some of the most amazing feelings that I've ever felt have been in those moments. And it's not from a egotistical, I'm a DJ, look at me, how cool I am. It's like
they're enjoying what you're doing and you're really giving them the energy, right?
And I've spent a lot of time listening, discovering, sorting, prioritizing, choosing music for that moment, and to see when it goes well, people's reactions, the positivity and the energy they give you back. It is something that is just straight out of your head. Like if before it went to your head, this goes straight out of your head, like it just shoots out like a star.
Honestly, like I feel like I can connect with you so much on like so many things we've talked about today. We're very, very similar in the way that we see like everything. And for music as well, for me as well, like hearing music that I've never heard before and like discovering that music and feeling that ecstasy. Like, I've been sober, I haven't drank any alcohol for over a year now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had so many nights out where I haven't taken any drugs,
Mhm.
haven't smoked any weed or anything. I've just gone out sober, and I've just danced the whole night. I just felt so like in flow. It's like I'm not present anymore. I am present,
it's
but
almost
I'm
a spiritual trance,
yeah, right. I'm not here. It's like I
Mhm.
am just completely in the music, and it's such a powerful feeling. And also, I've never DJ'd. I'd love to learn how to do that. But when I've performed at gigs and I've sang in Newcastle particularly,
Mm-hmm.
we had some gigs where there was like, you know, a quiet place where everyone's sort of just chilling and having a couple drinks, and they're expecting that it's just going to be like a chill gig. And before like a couple of songs are over, everyone is standing and dancing, or everyone just shuts up and they're just listening because
paying
they're
attention.
entranced by the emotion that you're getting across with the words and the way you're singing. And like you're singing covers of songs that other people have done, but you're making them your song. And like when I'm singing and performing with my old guitarist Pete, or when I play with now my boyfriend Louis, like the way that we create the music anew, like it's our song, and we channel the emotions that it means to us into the way we perform and the way we sing and stuff. It's so powerful, and I really love sharing with people a couple of vulnerable moments when I'm on stage, when I'm doing particular songs, like She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5 was a song my mum really loved, and I do sometimes like to share that my mum passed away and that this is like a really important song for me. And sometimes I'm feeling that emotion so strongly when I'm singing it that I completely forget that I'm even there. I am the music, and I start crying or whatever, and or my eyes start to water. And this guy once came and dropped like a £20 note tip on my music sheet whilst I was singing the song, because it connected to him as well. Like for some reason there was someone who it reminded him of that maybe he still has, maybe they've lost, maybe he empathizes, but it was powerful. And there are so many moments like that where people were just, you can feel the energy. It's not about you. They don't give a shit what your name is or who you are.
Yeah.
It's the way you make them feel, and the way that you're sharing the feeling that you have into their space, and
100%.
vice versa. And yeah, you just feel electrified by that feeling. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
And having sat in the audience of some of those gigs, when you've shared those moments, like from a pub that's got the chatter, the like, you know, hustle and bustle and noise of a pub, when you say something like that, or you show that vulnerability, you can hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Everyone is like focused, and then once that is just the perfect introduction for you to then just give your soul out there in a song.
It's so vulnerable and so powerful.
It is.
Yeah, vulnerability. Music is a big part of my vulnerability, I think, because I find I always used to be really awkward about showing people my music, because I felt like I was letting them in a little bit to like my vulnerability and my soul. And it's the same with my art. Like when I was younger, I'd be really scared to show people my art, because I thought as soon as they see it, they'd know exactly what I'm going through. They'd know how I'm feeling. They'd know my insecurities. They'd know all my darkness that I'm trying to
almost
deal
feel
with.
ashamed to like
You feel
expose
scared that they're going to judge you on those things that you're working on through the music and the art and the creativity. And as life has gone on, I've grown up, and I've realised that vulnerability is powerful.
It is.
And vulnerability actually is so much stronger than keeping your cards close to your chest. The more vulnerable, like honestly, the more drastically open and vulnerable that I think you can be as a person with your music, and connecting with people with your anything that is important to you that you feel you need to express, it makes you rise up in energy, and it helps other people to feel comfortable to do the same. It's really empowering.
The really beautiful quote from Coach Carter, that your light doesn't stop others from shining. Your light automatically enables others to shine around you, because it's infectious in the way that you live that life.
100%.
And some of the most beautiful music ever written was coming from that vulnerability. Thinking of Eric Clapton.
Oh, Eric Clapton's beautiful.
With the
One about
passing
his
of the sun.
Oh.
And that song is just, you listen to it and you're there with him. You're there in that depths of depression and grieving and sadness.
You find comfort in it, don't you? When you're going through something, and like, I don't know, when I've gone through breakups or my mum dying or whatever, I'll listen to music where people, I feel like they understand me. Like it's like they wrote the song for me, and they haven't, but I just feel so strongly what they are feeling that it helps me get through that moment, and it's really empowering. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end it on.
I've got one more.
Yeah, go for it. Give me one more.
Because this is I've left it last because I wanted to share a nice story to end on, but the hierarchy of really this point should really be first in your success or recipe for a happy life, and that is, and what we've spoken about already and touched on, is giving to others. The pure emotions, what we've discussed there about music and how that can make you feel, I believe just as strongly, if not even stronger, you can reach that feeling by giving to people. By either, you know, in small ways, in large ways, you know, if you want to feel that all the time and you can dedicate your life to it, absolutely. But there's a really nice example which you'll remember. I was actually with you and Louis after I came back from Dublin, and I was living in the UK, and I was on a bit of a journey of discovering a little bit more about Islam and becoming a little bit more spiritual, and just going through that knowledge phase, and was driving back late at night. We'd had a great evening together, and it was like midnight, 1 in the morning, maybe on a Sunday night, because I wasn't working. I was working for myself. I could afford to just then, you know, go back a little bit later, and got that freedom when you work for yourself. And was driving back, and, you know, in my mindset, just having a great time and thinking, and before, because I don't know if I told you, but after I left you guys, I just sat in my car for at least an hour and a half, just in that like park, just outside of when you go out of Louis' dad's house. There's a little grass area, and I just sat there, and I was feeling amazing, such positive high vibrations after being with you two all day, that I was channeling that into communicating with people, because I don't usually communicate with enough. I don't communicate as much as I would like to with close and even acquaintances that I would like to value their friendship. So I just chuck some of that energy into just like catching up with some people and sending messages and just checking in with people. That's cool. And just doing all of that stuff. And I was there with no time limits, just completely free to do that. And then when I felt like it was like I was okay, I'm happy, then I drove home, and I was driving on big motorway. Is it the M1?
M1, yeah.
M1, anyway. Big motorway coming from Louis back to Oxford, back to Didcot, and I was present, as you always are when you're driving, but at the same time pondering, thinking, and going through, you know, just nice, like, positive mindset of the good experience I've had. And I see there's a car, like quite a long way, I see it for a long time, there's a car stops on the motorway, and there's, bearing in mind it's such a busy motorway, there's no other cars around. Wow. Because it's just so quiet, no one's really going like out of London on Sunday at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's just no one there. So I decide to pull over and just check in, see if everything's okay. I'm sure that they're not stopped there on purpose, and like I'm sure something's happened. And it was a Muslim family of 3. So the wife and the 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl, quite young, and came over and said, "Is everything okay?" And yeah, everything's okay. We're just waiting for the rescue truck. They'll be here any minute. Thank you, you know, thank you for stopping. I was like, okay, no problem. And they were trying to like get me to like drive on. And I was like, no, I just want to make sure, you know, everything's okay. How long have you guys been here? And like, we've been here for 6 hours.
Wow, 6 hours.
And
that's crazy.
I was like, why hasn't the tow truck arrived? And she's like, oh, they'll be here, you know, that she had this faith that like, no, they will be here after 6 hours of waiting for something. You know how impatient people in, you know, our society are after 20 minutes, like, and she is the most vulnerable here, because not only is she on the motorway, but she's got her 2 children with her, and she's aware of how dangerous this is. So she said for most of that time, she had everybody waiting in the bushes off the motorway, outside of the car, like away from everything. And it's crazy. Freezing cold, and the kid's like, I want to be in the car when it's so cold, I want to be inside. And she's like, no, we have to, it's not safe. And just speaking with them, they were just such lovely people. And even the children were really lovely, and I just almost was in a dynamic from talking with them that I just felt like their older brother, and I felt like
cool.
you know, I was a respected kind of, you know, person, and I was just in that moment just like remembering really positive things and asking the kids about their sports and you know what they enjoy doing, and you know, keep working on that and keep working hard and being nice to your parents and just keep doing all these things, just almost to bypass the time as well. And then it's like, okay, can I speak to the tow truck company that's supposed to be coming to pick you up? It's not obviously going well, so I'll just speak to them. And I was on the phone with the company, and they're extremely rude.
Oh,
Extremely.
really?
Like, that person on the other end of the phone could not have been in a worse job, because that is not the person they were.
Yeah.
And what you need in that environment is somebody that is caring and that will go out of their way to help. And
somebody who's service orientated, right?
was not at all. They were completely like, this is a minimum wage job that I'm doing because, you know, I just need money so I can go out. And like, they were just not interested. No compassion. And I really like almost started to lose my temper with this person. I was like, this family's been here for 6 hours. It doesn't even seem like you've sent anyone. Have you sent anyone? You keep saying there's someone going to be arriving in 10 minutes, but they're never here. Can you speak to the driver? Can I call the driver? Can I speak to the driver? Like, I need to create something here that is going to help this family and get them off this motorway. It's extremely dangerous. And as I'm with this family, there was a roadside worker who stopped, and and by the way, she said that the 6 hours that I've been here, only one person stopped. You and this other like highway maintenance worker who's on shift on that motorway, and he stopped at the start. He had to, obviously, to go to work, and he was just like working, and then he came back to check in at the end. You guys are still here. And he was the most amazing soul, and it was one of those experiences where you meet, like, the universe is putting these people in your paths. He was a paramedic. He'd gone through, you could just tell he had huge PTSD, and was such a compassionate person. He'd taken on all these emotions from dealing with all of these insane, like, I have so much respect for paramedics and what they experience in everyday work for them, and the way that they give their lives and they put themselves through all of that emotion to help others is
it's super powerful.
So commendable. And we were having some really nice conversations, and it just got to the point where it was like, no one's coming, speaking to this company, and as I'm talking to the guy, I'm not sure how it came out, but I discovered that the owner of this business has some corrupt links to a UK politician. So this politician knows this person, it's their brother or family member. They're like, you can have this contract, you can do the highway patrol maintenance emergency services, you can just run this, we will give you this much money, you have a business, you have no interest in making it a good service, you just have some tow trucks and somebody to answer phones, and you employ people to make this work, and you do as little cost as possible, and you profit as much as you can. I don't know what the contract would have been, but it would have been in the millions. So there's like, basically it's a completely corrupt situation. And it's the tow truck, when eventually it did arrive, we saw the tow truck, like I saw it coming, and it completely just, you could see it was swerving. You know when somebody's falling asleep at the wheel, because it swerves, and then they're like, and then they correct it. And it went past us.
Oh, it went past you?
It went past us without, almost like it may have been asleep, or the guy may have been asleep as it passed us.
That's so dangerous.
And I was like, absolutely not, I'm not letting this go. And I'm like shouting, waving, trying to get the attention. I get into my car and I'm like chasing it. And eventually it stops. I'm flashing it and everything. Eventually it stops, and at the moment, in that moment, I have so much energy within myself that I want to explode at this guy. Where have you been? Like, what has taken so long? But obviously that's not the way. And I took a second to calm down.
It probably wasn't his fault as well.
Absolutely not, because it turned out that this guy was being forced to work He was an illegal immigrant in the country. He had no freedom. He was forced to work at least 18 hours every day.
Wow,
he was
that's
having like a
crazy.
few hours sleep, and that was his job.
That's crazy.
And he was being brought in from I don't know where, and he was, you know, quite vulnerable and scared to tell me these things. But because I came in with that positive energy instead of the "where have you been? This is not okay," I was able to discover these things, and I didn't. But I think I would genuinely have a case of taking this kind of operation, exposing it, bringing criminal charges against it. I don't have the resources to do those sorts of things, unfortunately.
I understand.
But was able to help them. I got the guys into the tow truck. They got taken all the way home. I said, I think there was an option, they weren't comfortable getting in the tow truck, or there was something, and I was like, I'll drive you home, it's fine, I don't mind, I can drive you home. And they're like, no, you've done enough, like, thank you so much, you are a guardian angel. At the end, she said something in Arabic, which I think roughly translates to, may Allah bless you and give you everything you desire. And it was such a beautiful, like, just really like heartfelt, highest compliment she could give for helping her family in that situation. And I just didn't think much of it, but it just seemed like an intuitive, nice thing to do. But driving away from that family was up there, maybe even more than those feelings of DJing to people and the positive ecstasy that you feel. Like it got stronger and more intense, and I wish I wasn't driving so I could have like meditated through it and enhanced it and just been present with it. But it's still, even though I was driving, I was able to feel it, and it was the fire burned so hot that again was one of those moments that just cemented the path that I want to go down and want to continue, and to have those moments not only for myself to feel that way, but for others.
Giving is very important, and giving isn't always just like give money to charity. It's like actually giving your time, your energy, your attention, your love to people that need it in that moment. It's super, super important, and that's what this podcast is supposed to all be about. It's like giving an opportunity for people like yourself to share these messages that have helped you to become a more fulfilled person. And you're still in a very early stage in your path. Like there's so much more that you have to give, that you're going to experience, and even like being able to give like the tiny messages that have led you to this path is such a powerful thing for people who are watching this. And there's going to be someone who's listening to this that's going to resonate with what you're saying, and they're going to feel the drive and spark in themselves to start moving into this path themselves. And I think it's really important that we each give in a way that is true and intuitive to us. You know, I think some people, they feel sometimes that there's a pressure, like, okay, I need to give and leave this world a better place than I found it. It automatically, okay, I'm going to work for a charity or whatever. And it's not as simple as just, you know, giving to charity or working for a charity. There's so many ways we can give with music, with creativity, with compassion, with actual projects where you go out there and you try and help people, with volunteering. Like there's so many ways we can give in this world, and each of us has a unique opportunity of skills and temperaments that give us the opportunities to give in our own special, unique way. And I think it's something that you intuitively find what works best for you when you let yourself be open and vulnerable to that experience to present itself, and you just go with it and see how you feel when you give in that way.
When you do more of the stuff that feels right and less of the stuff that you know doesn't feel right.
100%.
And over time you get to that equilibrium where you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, and then you act in that way.
I know it sounds silly, but like similar to your feeling of giving, I feel whenever I go, and I occasionally do like shifts working in like clubs and bars doing shot girling, and like for me, I don't need that money. It's not about the money. Like yes, okay, the money's good, but like I could go months not doing it and I don't really care. But then when I come to the point of having a shift, I'm so excited because I love making every single person that I interact with in that night feel special, heard, wanted, and like, you know, I want to be their friend. I want to make them feel that they are important, and that their stories that they have to tell, the jokes they have, their lives are meaningful, and that they are seen. And every time I leave a shift working as a shop girl, I'll walk around the whole place and I'll chat to people. I don't give a shit if they buy my drinks or not. I will enjoy a conversation and an interaction with anyone who's open to that conversation with me. And so many people will come up to me as they're leaving the venue and give me a hug and tell me thank you so much. Like, they enjoyed the conversation, like they felt that they were able to open up about something that maybe they haven't spoken to anyone about. Like, I've had conversations with people when they've opened up to me about how they feel that their group of friends no longer serves them, they feel a bit lonely or lost. I've had people talk to me about people that they've lost to, you know, cancer or parents dying or, you know, heartbreak. So many people, I just have these amazing conversations where I just want them to feel heard, and I really genuinely want to give them a piece of, you know, insight from my life that could maybe help them get over their difficulty, even if I've never experienced anything like that, just to give them that love and that compassion and that space to be where they are right now and not feel shamed for it or embarrassed. It's so empowering. And
it is, and you do it very well.
Thank you. I really enjoy that.
You have a very, it seems natural, I'm sure it's not, but it seems natural in the way that you make people feel in that way. It's really, really infectious and positive, and one of the things I really admire about you.
Oh, thanks, Jack. So I was coming back from a shift actually in Loughborough when I used to do shifts in Nottingham when I was in Loughborough in my final year of uni, where I would go all the way to Nottingham, and that was like a 20-minute train drive. But then once the shift was finished, I couldn't drive, so I'd then have to take 2 coaches, one to Leicester, and then from Leicester all the way back to Loughborough, and it would take me 2 hours sometimes to get home. And I was always knackered, but I was really high energy, knackered physically, but my mind was very high energy and stimulated from all of the conversation and the fun that I would have during the shift, trying to create that energy for people and myself. And I was once coming back from a Saturday shift, and there was a girl who was walking down, there was a street, you know the one in Loughborough, the Radmore Road that led to the Union? Sometimes a bit dodgy near the park. And there was a girl just kind of stumbling around, like she was very like skinny and petite, and she was very, very drunk, and she was just completely on her own. And I felt that it was kind of that point in the night where like everyone was starting to go home, and like maybe sort of more dodgy intentioned people might be out and about, and opportunities might present themselves for her to be taken advantage of. So I went over to this girl and I was like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And she was so smashed, she couldn't really speak properly. And she was trying to tell me that she lost her boyfriend. Like, I eventually got out of her that she had come from Birmingham uni to visit her boyfriend, and her boyfriend had had an argument in the club, and he left her in the club, and she got really smashed, and she couldn't remember what hall he was in or anything. I got out of her that he was in, what was that one that was near the Union? It was like outside of the Union. It was quite a big halls. I can't remember what it was called, but it was close to the Union. It was quite far from... No, not Cayley.
On that side?
It was on that. It was like outside of. You cross the road when you come out of the Union.
Bilmo.
Bilmo, yeah. So and I was like, okay, Bilmo, we're getting somewhere. Which one? Do you know what block it was? Do you know what number? Do you know his name? And I was trying to find this guy on Facebook. She had tried to unlock her phone so many times that her phone had locked her out for an hour. So we were trying to find on my Facebook her boyfriend, and she said, "That's my boyfriend, that's him." So I messaged this guy on Facebook saying, "I forgot your girlfriend, like, please can you tell me where you are so I can come and bring her to you?" Like, and it turned out it was the wrong guy, like she couldn't see the picture properly, and it was just a mess. And about an hour went by, we were trying to find a way for her to get home, and she was just kept on forgetting the conversation, and it was just really it was quite worrying how drunk she was, and the fact that they had had an argument and he left her.
How irresponsible it was of him to leave her in that state.
Yeah, and he was probably also really drunk, and she was like a first year, so it's, you know, kids are young, they make mistakes, and I just wanted to make sure that she didn't end up getting, like, falling asleep in a bush or getting raped or something. So eventually it got to the point that I was like, okay, well, we're not going to get anywhere in this situation. Her phone died, so I was like, okay, I've got a charger, I'm going to bring you back to my apartment. You can sleep on the sofa, and in the morning you can wake up, have a drink, have some food, whatever you need, and you can go and find your boyfriend when you are a little bit more able to remember your passcode or something. So I took her back to my apartment, and she like fell asleep on the sofa in the living room within minutes. I left her like a sick bowl and some toast for whenever she woke up, and I just left a note explaining what happened in case she woke up and she thought she slept with someone or something. So I left a note, hi, my name's Olivia, like, found you.
just like a mother would.
Yeah,
like, just
yeah.
anticipating all of these needs
Yeah.
and tending to them, so that when they do wake up and they feel that, like, oh, it's
Yeah.
already been taken care of for
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
So
I just wanted
very-
to make sure that she didn't feel like, oh my god, I slept with someone, and then her boyfriend freaks out. So I left a really clear note, and I said, I tried to contact your boyfriend, I don't know what's going on. If you need to talk to me about anything, here's my number, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, I went back to check on her a couple of times in the night, and she was passed out. She was sick a couple of times, but she was okay.
Good idea for the sick bowl.
Yeah, she was. It was
Nice.
okay. And I told my housemates, if you come into the kitchen, like, there is a girl there. Like, I don't know who she is, but I'm looking after her. And I woke up in the morning at like 11, 12, after going to bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and she was just gone. And I have no idea what happened to her. I don't know when she left. I don't know how she got home. But I felt good knowing that she probably got back safer than she would have if she
100%.
was wandering around Loughborough,
100%.
having never been there before. She would have definitely not found her way home. So it was a really good feeling, and I do feel like there is a different kind of high from helping and giving in that sort of way, whatever feels like it presents itself to you. So yes, that was a little story, similar sort of level.
100%.
I can understand how you probably were feeling in that moment.
In ways where you don't have to have been a saint and a charity worker and you know devoted, you know, that teacher that was teaching those things. You were a student, you were doing your own thing, you were like, but you are a good person with good intentions, and in that moment when called upon, you did. It is a responsibility, like it is just a basic human quality to help somebody and be hospitable and make sure they're safe and give them what they need in that environment. Even if they're not that bad, even if it's not that extreme, you can still practice that.
I
So,
completely agree. I think it's a beautiful note to end on.
I agree.
Yeah, it is a beautiful note
Thank
to
you
end
for
on.
having me on.
Thank you. It's been amazing. And there will be many more podcasts with you in the future. I'd love to keep up with everything that's going on with you with this
100%.
podcast, and for you to be able to share that. I'm guessing at the moment the only links that I'm going to be sharing for you are going to be your music from your YouTube. So I'll put that in the description section below and in the show notes if you're listening on Spotify or something similar. And yeah, I guess as it progresses, we'll keep up with you and you can share about your social enterprises and everything else in the
I look
future.
forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jack.
Thank you, Liv.